All right, Stokastic, here we go. It's your old pal EMac making a random appearance on a weekday on the Deeper Dive, joined by Adam Scherer as we break down a variable MLB slate. We've got all kinds of potential shenanigans here. 2 days left in the regular season. We had the last of the teams clinching last night. There are still some teams that can maneuver around their standings, their playoff orders, home field advantage, World Series advantage, etc. The real answer is we don't know for sure what anybody's going to do, but at least unlike the NBA final days of the season, we will have posted lineups. So that's something. Are you ready for the insanity, Adam?
Yeah, I'm ready for basketball. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, the basketball will be a good diversion here. I'm looking forward to that. The funny thing with baseball being a little wacky, a lot of people don't realize that the final day, couple days of the season get really weird because it usually happens on a Saturday during college football and a Sunday right up against the NFL. So this is nothing new for those of you that have been around or understand how that works. For those of you that are new, yeah, we could get some pitchers tonight that are starting that are just staying on maintenance mode, going 4 or 5 innings. That would be no surprise. Sometimes the veteran players or veteran pitchers like to just stay on their routine schedule and they have no intention of doing a full workload. Same thing can go with their hitters. They're creatures of habit. Plus, a lot of them are going to get a bit of a layoff here. So they want one last final tune-up before that happens. So just know that your mileage may vary as we head on out there. Adam, tell everybody, I see you have a new accoutrement there behind you. DraftKings Sportsbook pick, just a picture?
DraftKings sent the part of the octagon from the Nunes Pena fight. That there was Nunes Pena for the MMA live final in Dallas, and yesterday I got the package from DraftKings that I wasn't expecting, and it's a framed part of the octagon with the DraftKings logo. So
very cool. So it's the actual canvas there of the fight that you got to be at, and that you are the world champion, right? You're the world champion.
It's the actual mat. So pretty cool. Motivated me to actually hang some stuff on my wall that I'd been putting off.
Which is impressive because I know you like to leave things in boxes by your computer or maybe stacked by your computer before you install them.
It kind of, so I reorganized the whole room. So now the wall behind me was loaded with boxes ever since I moved in. Now those boxes are in front of me, and now there's stuff on the wall behind me.
Excellent. All right. Well, we're gonna come on in here. We've got what is it, 9 games, 10 games. Because there were a couple double headers today, the FanDuel slate was different from the DK slate, but it looks, as best I can tell, DK's pulling that second New York game from their contest. When I looked at it this morning, when I say this morning, when I was entering some lineups at lunchtime, they had said something about there's not an official start time for this game, so they weren't planning on including it. And now the reasoning for that would be is if it starts before the whole slate starts, they don't want that part of the player pool because then technically they'd have to lock the game there. I'm just going to call that up and see if they have changed anything since then. But otherwise, we're going to have 9 games. We do have some weather concerns here and there. Yep. So DraftKings says Nationals and Mets players are not going to accrue points tonight because this game set does not have a definite start time and all their players are colored red. So that's why they're doing that. FanDuel usually just excludes all doubleheader, second games of the doubleheader out of their main slate as a matter of course. So for anybody that's just wondering what's going on, that's the reasoning behind that. All righty, Adam, let's talk some games here. We've got plenty of time. We've got our first game up here, potential where are we? What am I looking at here? Sorry, I'm going to get mad in a second here because I hope I didn't copy the wrong run sheet in. That would make Jordan mad as well. I may have. So let's, Jordan, you're going to be mad. I copied in the wrong data for you. Jordan's mad. I'm waiting to look at him. He's shaking his head. He's very sad.
Yeah, these teams are definitely not playing each other.
Yeah, I thought I was going to get cute and copy the other run sheet. So, oops, my B. Let me get that fixed. But in the meantime, we'll do it live. We'll fix. This is what happens when you have a last minute host fill in for Josh Engelman, whose power magically went out. Now he has power back, but allegedly he's not at home. So Adam and the rest of you are stuck with me coming in here on short notice. So the actual game we're going to talk about is Toronto at Baltimore. Essentially, this game's looking like a pick'em. You've got Mitch White going against Mike Bowman. The weather for this one is going to be wet. They could, I guess, do a doubleheader tomorrow if they need to, but Toronto, I think, still has games. They can still maneuver their seeding advantage by winning this one. Do you think that you're sitting in Baltimore right now, Adam? Do you think the game will be played?
I don't really know. It's been cloudy and drizzling all day. It's also the end of the season. Like if this were June, I'd be pretty confident they weren't going to play. With it being the end of the season and you just kind of have to get games in, at least the way it looks right now, you certainly can play. It's not going to be fun for anybody watching. It's not going to be fun for anybody playing. But the way things look right now, you certainly could play. I don't really know what they'll do.
All right.
I do think it's likely that you're going to be able to treat it like if they start, they kind of like last night. They got to the 8th inning and called it, but like if they start, they're probably just going to play most or all of the game. If they start in a delay with it like drizzling, I don't think it's going to get any better. So that would concern me. But for now, I'm assuming that it goes.
All right. So looking at where they are in the standings, the only thing they can really help themselves with is potential seeding in the World Series. So there's really no reason for them to go all out. I agree with you. They probably will just get these in for posterity, probably see a shortened game. Nothing overly exciting in this one. We do have the lineups. We can see that Toronto is putting out a pretty weakened lineup. They do have Vladdy Guerrero batting third, but we're down to Danny Jansen at cleanup. You've got Whit Merrifield, who was relegated to not even platoon duty for shortly after the trade there. He's been back in the mix for the last couple of weeks, but the rest of the lineup is Cavan Biggio, Gabriel Moreno, Jackie Bradley Jr., Otto Lopez, Bradley Zimmer, who's been in mothballs forever, and Ramiel Tapia is batting second. So not the best lineup of all, probably not really that worried about a stack. On the other side, Baltimore running out their typical lineup. We do have some interest in them because they do have a lot of talented youngsters there. We sort of know what we're going to get. No Mountcastle in the lineup tonight, but you've got Cedric Mullins, Adley Rutschman, Anthony Santander, Gunnar Henderson, and waiver claim Jesus Aguilar, who they picked up a few weeks back after he was released from the Marlins. Would you be willing to make a run at this with Baltimore, even with the potential of a somewhat shortened game?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not too worried about the game being shortened. Like, it's obviously a possibility, but if this game starts, I'm going to just treat it like a normal game. I'm interested in either offense here. It's the pitching isn't great. Mitch White's done a decent job limiting power this year, but doesn't miss a lot of bats. There is power upside in the Orioles lineup. There's also some MPE with Gunnar Henderson being third base shortstop and Terrin Vavra hitting sixth, second base outfield at only 2,200. So you have power with Mullins, Rutschman, Santander, Henderson, Vavra is a decent hitter. Hayes has some power. Mitch White overall this year, not striking out a lot of guys. Only a 103 expected ISO to lefties, 138 to righties. So that's been good. But I don't mind taking chances on the Orioles. The weather is not conducive for hitting, not just because of the rain, but it's like 50 degrees and the wind's blowing in. So that's not ideal. On the other side for Toronto, a pretty good matchup against Mike Baumann. Not a very good lineup, like you said. Vladimir Guerrero, really the only one of their good hitters that is in this lineup. But that also means you get some value because you get Danny Jansen, who normally is hitting 8th or 9th, hitting cleanup. You also get, I think, their actual top hitting prospect. If not, it's one of their top hitting prospects. Gabriel Moreno is a $2,300 catcher hitting 6th. I think that's a spot you probably would consider in cash games at only $2,300. I know when I was sort of just playing around with a cash lineup earlier, I kept wanting a catcher in that price range, and now you have Moreno. So I think he's probably useful there. He's a good tournament play too. Just a lot of power upside for him in a pretty good spot against Mike Baumann.
All right. I got I didn't copy the right run sheet over. So sorry, Jordan. I gave you the information there. So we've got that. What are you going to do? You get these old people here like me, and you get us out of our routine, and it gets all mucked up. What's a little mucked up? The weather in Boston, a little bit dodgy in Beantown. We've got Nathan Eovaldi going against Jeffrey Springs. This will, of course, be the last start of the season for Eovaldi. He came back from a bit of a layoff here. I don't expect him to go more than, it's going to be the same answer for most pitchers, 80, to 90 pitches, about right. Jeffrey Springs, somewhat intriguing as an SP2 at 7,400. If we look at Tampa Bay, I believe they are pretty well locked into anything that they can improve themselves with on the postseason. I'll mention the teams that do have things that could move around a little bit. This game, again, I think similar to Baltimore, it's probably going to play. If they get in 5 innings and can call it, they probably will. So that's where we are at this point in the game. It is October, and this is normally when playoff baseball. But now that we've had a late start to the season and extended the playoffs, etc., this will kind of be the new norm. Anything you want to call out on this one? A little harder to go to the offenses against the above average pitching here, even with Eovaldi potentially only going 65 to 70 pitches.
Yeah, 2 quality pitchers here. And like you were saying, both of these teams, nobody's really playing for anything, but Jeffrey Springs hasn't been throwing a ton of pitches this year anyway. I think if you get 80 to 90 from him like you've typically been getting, then he is an interesting tournament play at a cheap $7,400 price tag, only getting 5% ownership as well. It's not a very good matchup against Boston, but the wind is blowing in. It is 50 degrees. If the rain cooperates and this game goes, I don't mind taking some chances on Springs at that price tag. Nearly a 28% strikeout percentage against righties this year, only a 118 expected ISO. I think it's more difficult to get to Eovaldi at the $8,100 salary. I do have some interest in Tampa Bay bats. It's in theory a park upgrade going into Fenway, but again, the wind's blowing in. It's 50 degrees, so not as much as it normally would be. But there's not really good hitting conditions in most spots today. And on top of that, there are a lot of good pitchers going. So I don't mind taking my chances on a team like Tampa Bay, getting to some of them as a stack. They're projected for about 9% ownership on DraftKings, but they have a 15% chance of being the top value stack, in addition to a 6.5% chance of being the top scoring stack. So I do think that they are a relatively appealing lineup.
All right. I want to take a moment to thank everybody for coming on in and watching the show today, the penultimate day before MLB heads to the playoffs here. I want to say thank you to everybody that helped us get to 80,000 subscribers. That was a lot of fun. Let's celebrate here with some free tools. We have the MLB Top Stacks is free today. The PGA Golfer rankings are free. And don't forget, we still have the MLB Night Slates for DraftKings that are 100% free for all of the tools for the remainder of the season. That'd be tonight and tomorrow. Gives you a great chance to look things over before you want to make any purchases. Of course, the Top Stacks tool is one of our earliest models that begat the Top Stacks tool for NFL, and then also the Boom Bust tool sort of originated out of that for baseball or for basketball. I get all the sports on the brain here at the moment. So check that stuff out. We've got some excellent content here at Stokastic, and that is some free stuff we have in front of the paywall for you today. And before I forget, got to say shout out to Stephen Leibowitz. Happy Eovaldi Day. Happy Eovaldi Day. I'm going to get it right one of these tries. All right, Adam, now we've got some interesting stuff coming up. We got some games that might have a little more meaning here. You've got Arizona at Milwaukee. Milwaukee was eliminated from the playoffs last night when Philadelphia won. It looks like Milwaukee is putting out reasonable lineup with about what they have left, but you've got Yelich, Renfroe, Colton Wong gets a bit of a lineup promotion. So does Luis Urias. Keston Hiura makes the lineup, and then it's their reserves filling out the last half there. They're going against Zach Gallen, who has been quietly amazing this year, Adam. I was looking today at the Cy Young Award odds over there on OddsShopper, and I wanted to see kind of where Alcantara was and some of the others. And I was like, why is Zach Gallen on here? I'm like, oh my God, Zach Gallen. I call him Galen. I'm sorry. But he has been, he's like 8th overall in ERA. He's top 10 in WHIP. He's having by far the best season of his career. It's pretty impressive. He's got some interesting strikeout props today. Last I saw, he was around 6.5. I think that's kind of interesting against the lineup here with Milwaukee. Let me see my notes. Say 7th in ERA, 2nd in WHIP overall with the 0.89. This is pretty impressive showing by him. I think he's going to be one of our main pitchers. He's one of the pitchers that really doesn't have postseason aspirations coming up, where we don't have to worry about Garrett Cole or Verlander, etc. I like Zach Gallen tonight. Gallen. I'm going to be stuck on that one for a while, but I like him as an SP1. There's one other pitcher I really like, but what are your thoughts on him and how he quietly kept rising through the rankings all season? It's been the real, oh, he's a good real life pitcher. And it's like, shit, he's a really good real life pitcher.
Yeah, he's towards the top of likely Cy Young voting in the National League this year. Not at the top, but close to it. Yeah, he's really good. He's got about a 27% strikeout percentage this season. Pretty solid strikeout matchup against Milwaukee as well. 26.9% strikeout percentage is tied with Verlander for second best on the slate. 3.27 xFIP is the second best on the slate behind Garrett Cole. And there's a lot of strikeouts here. The top of this order, Christian Yelich obviously is good, difficult to strike out. You can get some Ks from Renfroe. Keston Hiura hitting fifth. He strikes out like 40% of the time. Garrett Mitchell projects for about a 30% strikeout percentage. The bottom of this order should give you some Ks. It sets up, I think, as a really, really good spot for Gallen. He's one of my favorite pitchers on this slate, and he's projected to be one of the highest owned pitchers as well at 30% on DraftKings, but I have no issue with that whatsoever. I think it's fully warranted.
Yes. And chat. Yes, I fully know when I'm reading a name and it gets stuck in my mind, I'm saying it wrong. I know it's Gallen. I absolutely know it is. I unequivocally believe it is. Yet here I am. Never get old, Adam. Never get old.
Yeah,
it's not fun. So I was just quickly looking to see what we could find for him here on Pod Shopper, because that is the Stokastic sister site here. It's totally free to you. It says he's got 7.5 strikeout is his over under. So that looks like it went up a little bit. We're projecting for the under at 6.1. You do have a pretty heavy juice on it. The money line's minus 148 at the best book right now. But and so all that means is it's more likely that he's going to be under 7.5 strikeouts. Kind of feels like maybe a little bit of a stay away, or this could be something you could utilize in a same game parlay where they usually don't let you do the unders, but you could pick something like 5 strikeouts and get some reasonable odds when you combine that with some other wagers. That is a lot of fun. I've been learning a lot in the various channels here in our Stokastic Discord from Greg Ehrenberg and from Eric Lindquist, Laffy, Shander, Ben, Gajeski, etc. They all have their own betting channels. So this is something that's very helpful. And I've been having a lot of fun doing this sports wagering. I know it's not available in every state, but for those of you that are in states that have sports wagering, this definitely helps cut your learning curve, being able to talk to those guys and sort of tail them on some of their picks or put together cross card parlays. All right, Adam, back to this game. Eric Lauer, bit of a mess. His last couple starts, I think 2 of his last 4 starts have been semi-disastrous. Would you be interested in the Diamondbacks tonight? You've got the super discount dandies because they're not running out anybody that's really good. You have Jordan Luplow up there. You've got Stone Garrett. Those guys are coming in at 25 and 3,300 on DraftKings. Not that salary is a major consideration tonight, but those guys have some nice numbers against lefties. McCarthy, Christian Walker, Josh Rojas. Kind of gets a little tricky to put a full stack together that you feel confident about, but how about a complimentary stack or some cheap one-offs?
Yeah, I do have some interest in the Diamondbacks here. One concern I have is that when you're getting these lineups against left-handed pitching, there is pinch hit risk. I think particularly with Stone Garrett and Jordan Luplow, you don't have Corbin Carroll in the starting lineup. You don't have Pavin Smith in the starting lineup. Carroll in particular, I would think, is likely to hit for one of Garrett or Luplow once you get later into the game. But they are both cheap. They are hitting at the top of the order and have the platoon advantage. If you're full stacking, though, don't be afraid to go to McCarthy, Rojas, Dalton Varsho. These are all guys that can hit, and it's lefty-lefty, but at least you don't have to worry about them getting pinch hit for. You also shouldn't have to worry about Christian Walker or Carson Kelly getting pinch hit for. They both look like reasonable values as well. So I am actually interested in the Diamondbacks. I have respect for Lauer as a pitcher. I think he's solid, but there is some talent in this Arizona lineup, even without Corbin Carroll starting. Lauer this year, a 163 expected ISO to righties, 201 actual ISO. He's been much better against lefties in terms of limiting power, as you would expect, but if they can get to him early, get into the bullpen, then you should have the platoon advantage for guys like McCarthy and Rojas and Varsho later in the game, and their ownership should be lower as well. Right now in the top stacks tool, we have Arizona getting about 5% ownership, projected for about a 6% chance of being the top scoring stack, but also about an 11% chance of being the top value stack. So I do think they're going a bit under-owned right now.
All right. Lauer was someone that popped early on a lot of the models here for strikeout props this season, and we were able to take advantage of that. Alex was on him a little early. He's beyond his career high for innings. In his last 4 starts, 2 of them he failed to close out the 3rd inning. So this could be a little bit of running on empty with Lauer. And now that they're eliminated, I don't expect much from the Brewers in this one. The next game we have here, I don't think we have the lineups yet, but we are looking at, where is it? It's New York, and did their early game finish yet, Adam? I know it was sort of wrapping up. Let's go look and see, because maybe we punt on this one and come back to it. Nope, still. Oh, no, there it is. So we should get their lineup before we're off the air. Otherwise, live before Lock can handle it. But the Yankees ended up winning 5-4 in the early game. Just quickly looking at the box score, we did not get an Aaron Judge home run. I suspect he will play in the nightcap here. He did go 1 for 5. I know he's battling Luis Arias for the potential Triple Crown with the batting title, and Arias is actually in the lineup tonight. So I would expect to see Judge. I don't know who else is going to be in that lineup. Colby Allard is on the other side. Yes, we want to take players against Colby Allard. That there's, we don't need to do a lot of analysis on that. It just depends who's in the Yankees lineup. Garrett Cole is a question on the other side. We don't have the Texas lineup. We know pretty much about what they're going to run out there. They've been, even though they're eliminated, they've been rolling mostly with Semien, Nate Lowe, Seager, Garcia, Josh Young, Jonah Heim, etc. So we'll probably see most of those guys. How are you feeling about Garrett Cole? And did you come? I know I got to tune in for just a moment on one of the earlier shows today, and I know you were mentioning you weren't sure where his pitch count would be and what the motivation would be. Did you see anything that would help clear that up for us tonight, or is it still a black box?
No, he's just one of the guys that I'm assuming you're going to get close to normal work. I mean, so the way I'm viewing guys like him and like Verlander, that are on playoff teams, that are aces on playoff teams, there's a non-zero chance that, kind of like you alluded to earlier in the show, that they just go out there, throw 4 or 5 innings and come out of the game healthy and get ready for the postseason. That can certainly happen, but without seeing that explicitly stated, I don't think it's the most likely outcome. I think the most likely outcome is probably that, you get 90 pitches, 6 innings, somewhere around there. And, so I think it's likely that, even if Garrett Cole's just dominating Texas, he's probably not giving you 8 or 9 innings today. There's just no reason for him to. But without seeing the Yankees say like, oh, we're going to limit him, I'm expecting that you're getting, 6 innings, 90 to 100 pitches, and then that he'll get the gate. And that's plenty. It's a good enough spot. Texas certainly has some power in their lineup, but there are strikeouts here as well. Cole has had home run issues this year, so it's not the safest spot in the world, but leads the slate and strikeout percentage by a wide margin at 32.2%, best xFIP at 2.81. He's a really, really good pitcher. Right now, we have him projected for 43% ownership. That is a lot more than Justin Verlander is getting, which I think is kind of interesting. I think that they're pretty similar, so I'm kind of surprised that we have him projected for so much more than Verlander.
So let's kind of dovetail this and let's talk about Verlander as well. So he's someone over the last 2 starts, I've been thinking 80, 85 pitches. Guess what? I was wrong. 2 starts ago against Baltimore, he ended up going 93 pitches. He, capped out at 6 inning, tapped out in a game where Houston ended up losing. In the last game, he went 101 pitches against Arizona. Houston ended up losing that game in extra innings. They came back and tied it after Verlander had gone out. It's one of those where Verlander's 39. He pretty much has the Cy Young wrapped up. Yes, he missed some time, wants to stay on his normal course. You could say the theory is you want to keep him as normal as you can because he's going to be, sitting for, potentially almost a week with the wild card games still having to be played before Houston even comes into this mix. But Houston already had locked up their place as the second best record in baseball and the best in the American League, and they still let him throw that many pitches. It's a crapshoot. Would it, is it in the cards tonight that he only goes 60 pitches? Yeah, but he could go 80 or 90. The variance is dialed up to 11 tonight, Adam.
Yeah, I view Verlander and Cole very similarly, and I'm with you. The last time Verlander pitched, I said kind of the same thing I just said about Garrett Cole, that I expect he gets 6 innings and that, they just kind of take it easy, but, that they don't really let him push himself, but that also, like I wasn't expecting him to come out early, but it was certainly possible that he would. Then they did let him go 7, throw over 100 pitches, which surprised me as well. Does that happen tonight? I have no idea. The fact that he did it last start makes me a little bit more optimistic that he's going to get like a normal start here, but I don't really know. But I think the risk between those two is very similar. I am just really surprised by the ownership projections, though. I'm curious to see if that changes between now and lock, because it's not even like we have Cole projected a lot higher than Verlander or anything. We have Cole and Verlander projected for nearly basically the same DraftKings points. Other places have Verlander projected ahead of Cole, so that's not driving the ownership. I don't really know why why Cole would be expected to get so much more ownership than Verlander, but if he does, I would certainly like Verlander, given the gap in ownership.
Yeah, and that's I would think it's going to be a little closer than that. There doesn't appear, as you laid out nicely, there doesn't appear to be a reason for them to be drastically different. A reason why they're both getting a lot of popularity tonight. Money's not an object. We have so many players that are 3,000 or less on DraftKings, and when you start to look at the raw pitching points, that's something that Adam likes to talk about a lot, for good reason, on the short NBA slates. We're kind of seeing a function of that tonight. A lot of the pitching we're going to talk about has question marks, is in a tough matchup or motivation we're not entirely sure of. And you could be the lead pitcher on DraftKings with somewhere to 20 to 25 points. And these guys can get that in their 80 to 90 pitches. That's what makes them intriguing. We just are saying we don't know for sure. Don't get angry if they come out after 60 or 70 pitches.
Yeah, that's kind of the way I'm viewing it. I know I'm going to get to these guys, and then I'm just going to be like holding my breath between the 5th and 6th inning, hoping that they come back out.
Yes, Carlos Manso says Adam has no idea what EMac is saying right now. No, he's flashing back to all the many shows we did together when I would just talk, and he would have a little out-of-body experience and wish he was anywhere else but in his chair.
I'm just thankful that I'm sober right now. It makes this so much better.
That's
those Saturday morning shows were rough.
Well, that was always the question. Is Adam still drunk or is he hungover yet? Because the eyes are pretty red. They're pretty red. Okay, so just wrapping up anything for the Yankees game there, and then we'll talk Phillies. If the good hitters are in the lineup, play them. It's Colby Allard. If they're not, look to their understudies because they're probably not going to get pulled early. That's a nice benefit of this being the second game of the doubleheader.
Terry just said Jesus Tinoco is starting game 2 now for Texas, which means I need to find out who Jesus Tinoco is.
Well, we've got a hot minute here. We got 45 more minutes before we go on. Let's do a little trip over here.
16 games, 1 start, 19 2/3 innings in the majors this year, striking out 20.8%, 3.67 FIP, 4.74 xFIP. I wonder if they're going to have Allard follow him, maybe?
They might. So I'm just looking. Tinoco, not really a prospect. He is 27. He has been bouncing around in the rookie league, started in 2012, way back in the day, there in the Gulf Coast League and the Dominican Summer League. So he hasn't made that many appearances. Was with the Toronto organization for a while, moved over to Colorado, had a hot minute there with Miami, back to Colorado. Now he's in Texas. Just looking at his other stuff. Do you have FanGraphs up for him?
Yeah, but I was just looking. He pitched yesterday. He threw an inning. He threw an inning on October 1st. My guess is that he's opening, and then Colby Allard's following him.
Which makes sense. So Allard still in play as a bulk inning reliever or a player. If you're trying to find innings, I'd rather roll the dice with literally anybody else.
Yeah, I don't see any reason to go to him.
Yeah. All righty. So we have, did we get that lineup for the Phillies? We do have the Phillies lineup. It is, it's the we're hungover lineup. You've got Bryce Harper leading off, Alec Boehm, Derek Hall, one of their prospects, Brandon Marsh batting. Clean up the cast off from the Angels. You've got Bryson Stott, Nick Maton, Matt Verling, Dalton Guthrie, Garrett Stubbs, a few creative players there. Could Verlander get 20 DK points on 53 pitches.
Yeah, I was going to say, with this Phillies lineup, you could certainly see Verlander's first start back from the injured list. Josh and I went back and forth on like how deep he'd be allowed to go into the game. And it basically came out, he like exceeded Josh's projection, but I was right on the innings. Like Josh was wrong on how he got to his projection, but you just had Verlander completely tear up. I think it was Oakland. You could certainly see the same thing here where, and that's another reason why I'm fine playing him and playing Cole, is like there's like added volatility in that we don't know exactly how deep into the game he's going to go since Houston's not playing for anything. But there's also volatility in the other direction where it's like he could go 4 innings, but he just strikes out 10 guys anyway, and you get there regardless. So there's plenty of ways for him to get there, and it's just a really good matchup when Bryce Harper and Alec Boehm are basically the only normal major league players in this lineup.
Yeah, that definitely is going to be he's going to race out to some fantasy points, and then they're just going to kind of stop. But he has a decent chance of getting there. So Philadelphia technically, so they clinched last night. I think technically they can still catch San Diego. The wild card rules. It's funny just trying to find, without running into all the BuzzFeed and Bleacher Report articles, trying to find out what the exact rules are for the new postseason was a bit of a headache. But basically, the lowest of the wild card seeds plays the lowest or the worst record of the 3 division champions, and then the other 2 wild cards play each other, with the wild card team with the best record being hosting the entire 3-game series. So the question then becomes, what's what's a better way to say it? Philadelphia is likely to play on the road. If they were able to run down San Diego, they would then host the series, but they need San Diego essentially to lose 2. They got to win all 3 of theirs. It's one of those where it's such a long shot. I'm not surprised to see everybody getting the day off. Plus they had to face Verlander today. Are they going to go for it the last 2 days? Probably, depending on what happens tonight with each team. But it's a long shot with just 2 days left in the season for that. So I wouldn't expect a ton. But that's sort of where we are on that. Houston keeps running out all of their key players. I thought we'd see a more watered down lineup today. We're seeing essentially what we have, Adam, for the last 2 weeks. With Houston there, I thought they'd give somebody a day off there. Ranger Suarez, decent pitcher, adequate strikeouts, not great, very consistent on. I think he's the one that gets like 4 a game every game, no matter what he does, or somewhere around there. But in any event, it's hard to like Ranger Suarez against a lineup that is still coming in with Altuve, Pena, Alvarez, Bregman, Tucker, defending batting champion Yulieski Gurriel, pesky guy Aledmys Diaz. Is Suarez, he's just in your mix, I'm sure, but do you anticipate getting much of him?
I don't anticipate getting much, if any. He's projected to go under-owned, but he's just one of those low probability guys where he's projected for 1% ownership, 7% chance of being a top 2 pitcher. That's fine and all. I probably won't get there for a couple of reasons. One, difficult strikeout matchup against Houston. He's not a great strikeout pitcher either, striking out 19 to 20% of hitters this year. But also, if you want to take on, if you want to roster a good pitcher that's risky, you can save $900 and go to Jeffrey Springs. You have Sean Manaea, who's a lot less expensive. You have Michael Lorenzen, who's less expensive against Oakland. There's just like a lot of ways that you can go here that don't involve Ranger Suarez against Houston.
All right. So here's last I checked, Ranger Suarez had a 3.5 over under on his strikeout props. In his last 14 games, he has at least 4 strikeouts in every game. In 8 of those games, he had exactly 4 strikeouts. PrizePicks, sponsor of the show, has him at 4 strikeouts. That's kind of a stay away. You'd rather have the 3.5 there. On PrizePicks, when you do tie in a wager, it just comes out of your card. It doesn't count as a loss. It doesn't count against you. Your card, it just comes out of your card and goes to the next, the payout slot option. So I was looking forward to hoping that they would mirror the market at 3.5. They did not, but that's Taco Tuesday over there. So they are giving some discounted player questions. You can find those when you go log in. They'll have a taco next to the player's name. Earlier, it was John Gray for strikeouts. Then they went to Russell Wilson. They're still doing 2 more tacos today because, wait for it, it is National Taco Day on 2 Taco Tuesday. It's a pretty good deal there. Funny how that fortuitously that works out. The other little bonus you can get, sign up through our link and you can get deposit match up to $100 over there at PrizePicks. And you can also get 30 free days of Stokastic premium content. That is the best deal of all. It's a lot of fun over there. You can wager in or build cards in multiple sports. Currently, they have questions available for NFL, MLB. They do live props as well. You've got the NBA preseason. You got NFL up there, college football, soccer, etc. It's a lot of fun over there at PrizePicks. You're not having to play the Sharks. There is no mass multi-entry. It is you against their questions. Don't see any questions you like, you don't have to wager. Or you can try the different sports because they have at any given time a couple hundred questions up there. Matt Gajeski does a very good job of beating a lot of their closing lines on Tuesdays and Wednesdays for college football. You could find some added value there, especially when you see some of their wide receivers, running backs, and quarterbacks move dramatically 20 to 50 yards, 50 on the quarterback side, up or down in some of their yardage, just because they're basing a lot of their information off of averages for a lesser covered sport. So there's a lot of different advantages you can find there. Again, that is PrizePicks, sponsor of the show. You get $100 deposit match when you sign up through our link in the description below. All righty, Adam, I think we've got everything out. Well, is there any real reason to look at any of the Houston bats against Suarez? He's a good enough pitcher that he can eliminate their fantasy upside. Anything you want to comment on that?
I think they're going on their own. They're really, really good. Suarez is good at limiting power, but Houston, we have with a 6% chance of being the top stack, 3% projected ownership. The issue from a roster construction standpoint is that the guys that you want are expensive. Altuve, Pena, Alvarez, Bregman, Tucker, pretty difficult to string together, especially when there's not a ton of good cheap pitching on this slate. But if you can get to them, I think they're a good tournament stack just because of the lack of ownership and the amount of talent in their lineup.
All righty. I see one Eric Lindquist is in the chat. Shout out to Mr. Lindquist. Enjoy. Looking at our next game here, Adam, the Twins and the White Sox, Giolito and Josh Winder. Are we going with Winder?
I think it's Winder, but I'm not positive.
All right. Winder is kind of a whole lot of about a 16% strikeout rate, 5.2x ERA. No great shakes there. His strikeout prop was around 3 this morning. Lucas Giolito on the other side, having himself he's recovering from what his season has been. A lot of bad luck for him this season. Strikeouts have been there. Also back to his old ways of allowing a fair amount of power. He is going to be going against a Minnesota lineup that is, this one's for you, Lindquist, decrepit. They are missing so many players. It is just an embarrassment out there. Other than Luis Suarez, who's going for the batting title, and Carlos Correa, it's a bit of a mess. I think Lucas Giolito is kind of in that mix with Zach Gallen as intriguing pitchers that may be a little more solid than the Verlanders and Coles of the world. What do you want to do with this game? Where do you see Giolito pitching? I feel he's closer to 90 pitches than anybody else we've talked about, him and Gallen.
Yeah, I kind of feel I'm interested in most parts of this game. I think the only part that I'm not really interested in is Josh Winder. But Giolito at 8,500, we talk about it a lot. You can't compare him to previous versions of Giolito. He's priced for what he is at this point, and that's still one of the better strikeout pitchers on the slate. 25.7% strikeout percentage is 5th behind Cole, Verlander, Gallen, and Springs. 3.59 xFIP, 4.07 FIP. Both of those numbers are fine. He has had power issues this year, but it is supposed to be in the 60s in Chicago. Not very good hitting weather there, unlike for most of the summer where it plays as a really good hitter's park. And then also just not a lot of power in the Twins lineup either. Can be difficult to get some strikeouts strikeouts here, especially when you're facing Luis Suarez more than any other hitter. He's extremely difficult to strike out. But at 8,500, I had said this morning before ownership projections came out that I thought you would get around 15% Giolito, and then that's probably where he should come in. We have him at 17%. We have him with a 16% chance of being a top 2 pitcher. So pretty much in line with what I was thinking. And it just makes him look like a solid play, not my favorite pitching play, not somebody that I'm looking to get away from, just somebody that's going to fit nicely into some lineups. But then on the other side, you have, even though it's a kind of weak lineup because of injuries, you have some cheap pricing and still some upside on Minnesota as well. When you have a pitcher like Giolito that struggled with power as much as he has, the Twins right now projected for 6% ownership, 6% chance of being the top stack, and an 8% chance of being the top value stack, one of the better marks on the slate. You have, Correa, who's not cheap, but he's always one of the highest upside shortstops. Nick Gordon, second base outfield at 3,300 looks good. Jose Miranda at 3,800 looks good, one of the top hitting prospects in baseball. Ryan Jeffers gives you some upside as a $2,700 catcher option. So I think that kind of just getting to both sides there makes some sense. And then as far as the White Sox go, they are projected to go quite a bit over-owned. We have them as the second highest owned team behind the Dodgers at 11%, only about a 6% chance of being the top stack, but also a 6% chance of being the top value stack. Winder has been one of the weaker pitchers on the slate this year. He's allowed a 187 expected ISO to righties, 181 to lefties, only striking out around 16% of hitters. The White Sox have been relatively disappointing from an offensive standpoint this year, but you do have guys in this lineup that have a track record and have some upside. Elvis Andrus is having his best offensive year in, like a decade. He's 4K leading off, but Gavin Sheets at 2,500 is the one that really stands out to me, hitting fifth. Other than that, though, Abreu is always fine. Jimenez is fine. Pollock and Grandal look okay. So I'm really just interested in most aspects of this game.
Yeah, I wrote in my article that this last 4 weeks has been the greatest stretch of Elvis Andrus's career. Yeah. It's been a little bizarre. Batting average is up 40 points over when he was during his time in Oakland, and up 30 points over the last few years. It's enjoy it. This is he's been in the league 14 years. He is 33, so he's probably got a couple more years. He's always had some moments. Excellent defensive shortstop, could steal some bases, but then that kind of petered out about 6 years ago or so. But rather interesting. So, how would you look to differentiate Chicago? By the way, we just had the Orioles and Blue Jays postponed. They're going to be playing a doubleheader starting at 12:35 tomorrow. How do you feel about differentiating for some of the White Sox here?
Yeah, so it's kind of tough with this lineup just because they're all getting some ownership. AJ Pollock is projected to be the least owned hitter at 5%. You have double-digit ownership going to Abreu, Andrus, Jimenez, Moncada, Sheets. So I think it's difficult within that lineup to differentiate, and that does make me think that from a personal exposure standpoint, I probably just end up under the field on them because I do like popular pitching today. I don't see a lot of low-owned pitching that I want to get to. It makes me think that I'm probably going to take my chances on lower-owned stacks instead. But that kind of just, to me, it means where I'm playing the White Sox, I'm probably just going to be having low-owned hitters from another team around them.
All right. Anything else you would like to mention from this game?
Nope.
All righty, let's look at what we have next here. We got a promo. We've got promo code MLBDD. That stands for Deeper Dive, but use MLBDD. You get access to all of the Stokastic tools and content for almost every DFS sport that is out there with the Stokastic Premium Pass. This includes access to all the content and tools, player projections, ownership projections, lineup builder, premium Discord, and so much more. If you are a new user of Stokastic Plus, then you can save 50% on your first week of any Stokastic Pass. I would recommend using the Stokastic Premium Pass, but you can get 50% off by using that promo code MLBDD. That's all caps, all one word, MLBDD for 50% off any weekly package. Does that one work in the strip clubs, Adam?
I was not listening.
There we go. I was just giving out some promo codes to the Gentlemen's Club. You get 2 for 1s. You already have a platinum membership there, right? You have a reserve table, don't you?
Yeah, of course.
All right.
The fan vice jerseys hanging in the rafters.
Jordan is now crying silently. So that's good. The fan vice jersey. All righty, on to the next game here. We have the Giants and the Padres. Looks like a bullpen game from the Giants. Sean Manaea might as well be a bullpen game. He has been an absolute disaster of late. You've got the Padres who are in the postseason. God only knows what's going to happen with them in the postseason. They'll probably get run out of it. What are your thoughts on Manaea tonight?
He's underpriced. He's getting 38% ownership. We have him second highest on the slate behind Cole. I said earlier, I think Cole's comes down and Verlander's goes up a little bit. So wouldn't surprise me at all if Manaea ends up being the highest owned pitcher, but I don't really have any issue with it. He's another pitcher sort of like Giolito, where he hasn't lived up to expectations and to what we've seen from him in the past. But if you just strip the name away and you say there's a $6,500 pitcher that is striking out 22.9% of hitters with a 4.03 xFIP, and he's facing, a decent Giants team, you're just gonna play him. There is some risk here. He's had home run issues. His FIP is like 4.7 compared to the 4 xFIP. But he's just underpriced. He's basically priced for everything that's gone wrong this year and not priced at all for the amount of upside that he's shown in the past. And even just the 23% strikeout percentage that he has so far this year. So I do think that it's a volatile spot. Like he's getting 38% ownership, and he is going to be going up against a bunch of right-handed bats that can do damage against him. I don't mind getting to some Giants bats, but I also think Manaea is just underpriced here.
All right. How do you feel about the bats?
For either team,
San Diego Padres. We'll circle back on the Giants.
Yeah, so for the Padres, you're expecting a bullpen game here with Jarrell Cotton opening. I don't love targeting those, but I don't mind it as much on a slate like this because there isn't a lot of starting pitching that I think is really weak. There haven't been a lot of stacks that we talk about that I really like, and there aren't going to be that many coming up either. So the Padres right now only projected for about 4% ownership, 6% chance of being the top scoring stack. They kind of run into a similar issue like the Astros, where they can be expensive, but not quite as expensive as Houston. We're still waiting on the Padres lineup, but it's likely that you have a $3,900 Profar leading off. You can get to like a $3,600 Josh Bell, who's likely to be in the lineup. Ha-Sung Kim is cheap. Trent Grisham is sub 3K. So it's a little bit easier to balance out the salaries with this team than it is with the Astros, I think. And I do like getting to them at relatively low ownership. On the other side for the Giants, I think that they're actually pretty interesting in tournaments. We have them going under-owned with a 4.5% chance of being the top stack, 3% projected ownership. You do run into some pinch hit risk there, which isn't surprising, and we are waiting on the lineup, but a lot of these guys I'm not overly concerned about. Like Wilmer Flores, they play against righties, so you're not too worried about pinch hitting there. Yastrzemski's left-handed, so whichever of the lefties are in the lineup, you're not worried about them getting pinch hit for. J.D. Davis has been playing more against righties recently as well, so I think there's less pinch hit risk on him than there was a month or so ago when they were subbing him out pretty frequently after he started against lefties. David Villar, they'll play against righties a good percentage of the time as well. So I think the only guys in the projected lineup that I would be really confident are getting subbed out are Austin Slater and Bryce Johnson. It wouldn't be shocking if JD Davis or David Villar were pinch hit for, but I think it's not a certainty by any stretch. And then on top of the fact that these guys are pretty cheap and they do have some power, you are getting leverage on the field, because if they do have success against Manaea, you have 30 to 40% of the field that is losing a pitcher essentially.
It looks like he's just a reliever though. I'm seeing DK has Luis Ortiz flagged as the starter. The other sites are still saying Jarrell Cotton. It's going to be a bullpen game. I just wanted to see if Ortiz had any potential stamina here. In his last 3 outings for the Sacramento River Cats, he's gone 25, 12, and 16 pitches. When he was up with, he was just a reliever when he was up with San Francisco earlier this month, did get as high as 36 pitches. So he's probably a multi-inning guy, but that's really it. We're just looking at a bullpen game. I was thinking that maybe we'll see somebody that could go 4 or 5 innings, but no dice on that one. How are you feeling about the Giants bats?
The same way that I was 2 minutes ago.
Sorry. I was guessing. I was guessing because you were talking about pinch hit risk, and I'm like, I'm not paying attention. I'm waiting for Jordan to get back to me about a question. He finally did. Producer Jordan, best producer in the business, named Jordan Klein, for that one. Okay, so let's see. We got 2 more games to go here. This one's actually a good one, at least from a fantasy perspective. You've got the Anaheim Angels in Oakland taking on the Athletics. Cole Irvin has been a mess over the last few starts. 6 home runs allowed, I believe, in his last 3 starts. On the other side, you have Michael Lorenzen. He is someone that I have mixed feelings towards. He's reasonable at a variety of things, including his time as an outfielder with Cincinnati, but he also is he's put together some September was good to him, Adam. I think is a better way to say it. So I think he's going to need to be on our pitching list because of today. If this was any other normal day, no dice, no chance, maybe on the late slate. But in his 4 September starts, he has a 3.1 ERA, a 1.1 whip, 23 strikeouts in 20 and 2/3 innings. The Oakland lineup is not a difficult lineup to face. We have been picking on them all season, especially with righties. On the other side, where you have Cole Irvin, he was someone that we have utilized in a few moments here and there, but I don't think this is going to be one of them. He has been, as I mentioned, a little dodgy from a power perspective when called upon over the last few starts this season. In his last 3 starts, 6 home runs allowed, 15 total runs, 15.2 innings. That is a tough task when you have a very concentrated offense with Ohtani, Trout, Ward, and hopefully Rengifo should be in the lineup. I think he was out last night for a rest day. Is it all Angels all the time in this matchup?
Yeah, the Angels look pretty good here. The only thing working against them is that they are going into Oakland, so you get a negative park shift here, and the park can certainly help Cole Irvin with his power issues. But kind of like I've alluded to a couple of times already, there's not a lot of pitchers I like picking on this slate. So the fact that this game is in Oakland isn't as much of a concern to me relatively. 211 expected ISO, 180 actual ISO allowed to right-handed hitters from Irvin so far this year. We don't have an Angels lineup yet, but Trout clearly is going to look really good. Don't care that it's lefty-lefty for Ohtani. Rengifo and Ward have been priced up a little bit, but they still look like pretty solid options. You have Anthony Rendon back in the lineup at 3,600. If Joe Adell's in the lineup, I like him. Really like getting to him against guys that don't miss a lot of bats because he swings and misses a lot, but he also hits the ball really far when he makes contact. 2,600, plenty of power upside there. And then whoever's catching is going to be appealing. It could be Kurt Suzuki at 2,300. It could be their top prospect, Logan O'Hoppe at 2,400. Either one of those guys are going to be another way that you can offset some salary at catcher. So interested in the bats and also interested in Michael Lorenzen because it is a positive park shift for him. You do have a relatively weak Oakland lineup, and Lorenzen's cheap. He projects pretty well. We have him projected for about 14 and a half DraftKings points. So on the one hand, we have him projected like 4 points behind Sean Manaea, but he's also getting 1/5 to 1/6 of the ownership. This is somebody that at the very least, if you're playing a popular stack, for example, if you're going to the White Sox, you can just go to Michael Lorenzen over Sean Manaea and have a similar range of outcomes, even if he's going to get there a little bit less frequently. And you also, could just use him at low ownership anyway. He's also somebody that I was saying this morning, I'm surprised he hasn't had more success against left-handed hitters than he has this year. He's struck them out at 20%. He's allowed a 160 expected ISO, but he's got a really, really good changeup that he throws 31.5% of the time, has a 20% swinging strike percentage, well below a 100 ISO and expected ISO on it. The way his numbers look to me, it kind of just looks like if he's getting ahead in counts, he's going to be really difficult for these guys to hit. It's that his fastball is just pretty much getting lit up. His cutter specifically has just been getting lit up. So I'm kind of guessing that it's a command thing. And if he's behind in counts, he's really hittable. But when he's ahead, he's really difficult to hit. At this price tag, that's pretty appealing to me, just knowing that if he is able to locate, he's got a good put away pitcher.
That's actually something I've been looking at. I've not been taking any actionable information on it, but it's interesting to see the different pitchers and the different styles. When you see some of the players that are eminently hittable and they, are ahead of the count like 55% of the time or 56% of the time, you're like, man, they get their ass kicked. You're like, well, maybe the hitters are just waiting for their pitch because they know what they're going to get and are really going to tattoo it. So some of the ahead of the count, behind the count has been fascinating stuff to look at over the last couple seasons. Adam, I know you used to go really deep into the different information and stuff like that, but that's something I still like to look at from a higher level. Once we've learned that there's so much more game theory to DFS than the blanket statement game theory, than really worrying about each of the nuances in players, it kind of is taking that type of analysis out of it, but I still like to go down the rabbit hole sometimes.
And also, I mean, you mentioned Lorenzen having better results recently. If you look at his pitch usage recently, changeups are up 34% last start, 32, 26, 27 over his last 4 starts. For the season, he's thrown it 21.6% of the time. So he's thrown it in each of his last 6 starts. He's thrown it at least 20% of the time. So you've seen that increase. You've seen the cutter really go down. That's the pitch I just mentioned was getting lit up by lefties. Over his last 5 starts, 4%, 5%, 11%, 4%, 10%. So not throwing that as much. His fastball usage is down. He's recently been throwing his best pitch more frequently, and it has translated into better results.
All right. So moving into our next game here, we have kind of the last game of the night. We're going to talk a little Stokastic Hall of Fame. We're going to talk a little bit of PrizePicks, and then of course you're going to get the live before lock crew coming up after us to bring you on down the home stretch. So tonight, Julio Urias is starting. Tomorrow night, it's going to be Clayton Kershaw. So what that has done is that's kind of pinched the back half of the rotation because Gonsolin came back. And we're shortchanging Andrew Heaney. So what they are going to do is they're going to use Heaney after Luis Urias tonight. At least that's what I'm going to drop this article into the YouTube. At least that's what I read this morning from Dodger Blue. It's one of the team websites that they're talking about that. So we know that the Dodgers have been locked into the best record in the league for quite some time. We know that they tend to pull their pitchers a little bit early. I would be shocked if we get more than 4 innings, maybe into the 5th for Urias today. I'm going to say the same thing about Kershaw. This is the situation where we described they're on their regular maintenance starting. Let's not get out of the routine because they're going to have a bunch of days off here until they start up after the wild card round. So I'm a little nervous about Urias. He does not have the same strikeout upside that Cole and Verlander do. And he's going against, not the best of lineups, but still an adequate enough lineup with Grichuk and Brendan Rodgers and CJ Cron, et cetera, that I'd rather roll the dice with those other starters. So I'm not going to give the same, not that I'm vouching for those other guys, but I feel no interest in Urias. How are you approaching that through 150 tonight, Adam?
Yeah, I don't have interest either. I think we have Urias overprojected right now. We have him as the 3rd highest scoring pitcher on the slate. I'm assuming that we have him in for an extra inning or 2. Heaney coming in after him just makes me really worried about that. Like the article you linked said that they want Urias and Heaney to cover the entire game. But to me, that just reads like 5 innings for one, 4 innings for the other. Urias certainly could still have a good outing here. It's a good matchup. He is only 9K. Given the fact that there's not a ton of good pitching on this slate, and there are plenty of question marks as far as, Verlander could get pulled early, Cole could get pulled early. I don't think you need to just remove Urias from your player pool or anything, but I'm not very sold on his upside. For him to really get there, I think it has to be one of those Verlander type starts where, he goes 4 or 5 innings and just happens to strike out 9 guys, which, can happen, but it's not something you should really be banking on. But, so I'm not too excited about the pitching here because they're not cheap. Heaney's 10-4, Urias is 9K. It is a good matchup. It's just really hard for me to want to get there knowing that they want to split the game.
All right. Looking to the Dodgers, who of course don't have their lineup. I'm assuming you're interested with anybody that makes the lineup going against Feltner.
Yeah, the issue with the Dodgers is just the ownership. It's pretty similar to last night where it sets up as the clear top spot. We have them with a 13% chance of being the top stack, but 19% projected ownership. They're not exactly cheap either, and it's still baseball. Ryan Feltner is certainly one of the weaker pitchers on the slate, but that doesn't guarantee anything, and everybody is very aware of that. 165 expected ISO to lefties this year, 218 to righties for Feltner. Getting to the Dodgers, obviously, it's good. If you can do it and find ways to make low-owned lineups around them, then do it. But it's another team that's just really difficult to balance out the ownership because you have a minimum of 9% going to every hitter in the projected lineup, and that's Joey Gallo. Gavin Lux next lowest at 13%. Betts leads the way at 22%. So if you're 5-man stacking the Dodgers, it's really difficult to get different elsewhere.
All right, let's do a little Stokastic Hall of Fame while producer Jordan is calling that up. I want to say in chat, Corey Ballmer says one of the funniest things. I once shipped $200,000 in a showdown, sent an email to my job quitting, and then got stack corrected an hour later to a train for only $3K. And Carlos Manzo sums it up perfectly. He says, that's the saddest and funniest story I've ever heard.
That's amazing.
That's pretty good. That's pretty good. All right. So we got the Stokastic Hall of Fame here. You can go to stokastic.com/avatar, download the Stokastic profile pick, upload that to the various DFS sites of your choice, and then tweet your wins to @StokasticHOF. We'll celebrate them with you. And if you finish top 3, that's first, second, or third, no ties, unfortunately, Corey, no ties, you will get 30 free days of Stokastic Platinum. You can win one of those subscriptions per year, but that's a pretty slick deal. It's a nice value. So moving along here, we've got T-Pack. He says, I know it doesn't qualify for the free month because I split with 30 people, but still wanted to share this showdown win. He turned $45 into almost $5,200. That's pretty impressive, led there by Tyreek Hill. That's a nice one there. We've got Fresh CA says, I just need to keep my ass off the main slates. Won the quarter jukebox, $25,000 quarter jukebox, $173. We celebrate ROI. We celebrate green with everyone. That is a nice one there. Fresh CA. Next up, we have Vin. Vin says, second takedown in 2 weeks. He loves this stuff. Looks like he's playing over there on Yahoo, I believe. He's got a nice little $100 victory there out of a $500 contest. Hat tip to him. DJ Nugent says, just started listening to you guys a few weeks ago. You helped me turn $3, yes, $3 into $1,250. Keep up the great work. He got second overall in the single entry 25K pylon over there on DK. That is very cool. So a hat tip to him. And then rounding it out, our very own Pete the Heat Rogers got just about $1,000 there on the showdown. He had Rashad White in captain leading the way there. That was a good night. A lot of fire in that lineup. We get one more here. Money Mike, saving the best for last. Oh, I like this one. One lineup. Thank you, EMac, for the great article. The EMac guy's pretty good at these articles. Thank you, Ship My Money. There you go. You get the call out. And Josh Engelman. Waters it down a little bit that we have to be compared to Josh, Adam, but there we are. He says, thank you for all the breakdowns of sports. I love baseball. Finally, I can say thank you to the Stokastic Hall of Fame. I am blessed. 50K on a single lineup there in the MLB bat flip. Very nice. That was he played both pitchers I recommended, and the Toronto stack ended up coming home. Sometimes you get lucky, right? Sometimes you win, sometimes you lose, sometimes it rains, as Crash Davis once said. All right, let's talk quickly here about PrizePicks, and then we'll get on out of here for the live before lock crew. So PrizePicks is a daily prop-based contest. As we mentioned earlier, no sharks optimizers, no mass multi-entry. You create 2, 3, 4, or 5 player lineups. You can get up to 10x your entry fee. They're always doing fun little things to encourage you to make some cards. Today is Taco Tuesday. What they do is they'll put up 2 or 3 different tacos, is what they call them, and then they knock off 8 to 15% of whatever the projection is. They'll keep them up there for a couple hours. You can put up to $25 of in play using those. You can make lineups. Usually you can make them for $5. Sometimes they'll do happy hours, or if it's a big day, they'll let you go down to $3 or so. But usually it's $5 for a card. And then it's a lot of fun to play over there. They also do Flex Friday is something they've changed. They used to do happy hour, but they now have been doing 15x payouts on 5 card flexes. So instead of 10x, you get 15x. A lot of fun over there. You come in through the link here below us here, and you will get a deposit match up to $100. And that comes out of your money, or that money comes out of your account first. And then you also get 30 free days Stokastic premium content if you come in through our link. So that's a good deal. You can already be a member, or you don't have to be a member to get that. So like right now, it's Zion Williamson is their taco play. You can get 21% off his points. So it's NBA preseason basketball tonight. He only has to get 7.5 or more than 7.5 points to win. Regularly, that would be 9.5. I mentioned earlier they had Russell Wilson on their earlier pick. They said today they're going to do one more after this one, be in honor of National Taco Day, which is today. But looking over here at the MLB picks, let's look for some of the pitchers that we were talking about. So we have Zach Gallen at 6.5 strikeouts. Now that we've seen the Milwaukee lineup, you feeling a little frisky going, he just needs 7, Adam. Just needs 7. Do you think
I don't have a strikeout projection in front of me, but I don't know. I probably over.
All right. So that one is an intriguing one. Michael Lorenzen is at 4.5. That one is, I think, a distinct possibility for him. Some other fun ones that they have here, you can do their fantasy scoring for baseball. For hitters, it's like DraftKings scoring, no extra bonuses. For pitchers, it's like FanDuel scoring, which does also include the quality start. So you want to make sure you understand their scoring, because you can go with hitter fantasy points or pitcher fantasy points. So that is a lot of fun to put together some different things here and there with PrizePicks. Today they don't have any home run picks up, but a lot of times they'll put up team home runs where they'll put 3, sometimes 4 players. And if any one of those players gets a home run, you get to win if you have selected the over. They also do first inning runs allowed, first inning hits allowed. See where I'm going with this? This sounds an awful lot like sports wagering. It's put up with a little bit of a fantasy twist, but this site, PrizePicks, is available in a lot of states where sports wagering is not available. The other thing you can do is you can go over to OddsShopper, and if you look at our parlay tool, there is a PrizePicks parlay builder that will help you determine the 5 best picks for either NFL or MLB. And as soon as NBA is up, that functionality will exist for the regular season. So that is quite helpful as well. So it's a lot of fun over here at PrizePicks. Let me see here if there's anything we can get Adam excited about. How do you feel about over under on first inning runs, the Dodgers against Feltner?
I have absolutely no idea.
Oh, Adam, come on. It's fun. Go with your gut. You don't have to look at the numbers all the time. You've turned into such a spreadsheet warrior. The old Adam used to go by
definitely no version of Adam has ever.
What about the Adam version who quit law school? That you were using spreadsheets way back then?
No, but I also wasn't guessing at first inning.
Sometimes you just want a little action on the game here. So that is something that's helpful. And then one other thing that we have, if you don't mind staring at just a touch of a wall of data, if you go over to Stokastic.com, hover over the MLB drop down, and you go to PrizePicks MLB prop tool. I'll drop this link in here. It will actually give you the direct access to the byproduct of all of our DFS tools for MLB in this case. That gives you the best opportunities for the over under. This pulls in all the different PrizePicks information for that sport, recommends you can filter it by whichever prop type you're wanting. If you're someone that wants to bet on the overs, you can look at that. If you want to go on the unders, you can look at that. But the best thing about this is over to the far right, it has the expected win. So the difference when you're using PrizePicks versus a sports book, there's no hold, there's no vigorous. It's sort of baked into the lines that they're creating. But if you look at some of their home run wagers or their yes or no first runs in the innings in the first runs in the first inning, it's a yes or a no, right? It's all about the win. It's not, oh, I've got to beat the rake as well. So there's a lot of different wagers like that that can provide you a little bit of an edge. You look for some of those, build them into your card, and all of a sudden you've got a nice little deal. The person who's really smart at this, that would be Eric Lindquist. He has been his wagering channel giving us PrizePicks recommendations nearly every day. So that's a lot of fun as well. All right, Adam, who are your top two pitchers for the night?
Gallen, Verlander, especially if ownership holds how it is.
All right, I would concur with that. And then how are you feeling about stacks? I'm sure the White Sox are up there.
Yeah, I mean, the Dodgers are clearly the top stack. They're also one that I doubt that I get to a lot of at current ownership. I'm interested in the Angels, have some interest in Arizona, have interest in the Giants.
Right. Chat's having some fun at both our expense. Let's see. Adam quit. Yep. Adam, well, I'm not going to read that one. Let's see. We've got PrizePicks EMac Solo Pod. Adam not interested in PrizePicks. Adam can't play PrizePicks in his state, I believe. That would be the reason Adam's not interested.
Yeah, I'm pretty much in purgatory where you can't play PrizePicks because Maryland has legal sports betting, but can't bet sports online because Maryland is incompetent.
Yet here I am just across the river in Virginia, and I get sports wagering and PrizePicks, so I get the best of both worlds on this one. But it's a lot of fun over here. Oh, saying I'm ignoring a super chat here. What was your super chat? We'll cover that and then we'll get out of here. EMac's son, if you want to type that in again, Team Eric will put that in there. Caleb says, hey, EMac, how's it going? Thanks for asking. What was it like to see the invention of the cotton gin? Well, we actually called that the spinning ginny back in the day. It's a different kind of spinner than people talk about these days. But Eli Whitney and we came up with that over drinks one night down at the local tavern. And then we had to stumble home because we forgot we rode our horses there. So we ended up walking home. There was no Uber that we could call to get us back there. So then we had to walk back the next day and get our horses. So there we go. Adam, we're going to get on out of here. You can, Jordan's sending us a super chat. Adam has checked out. That's okay. This is Adam's own personal help. Josh, I think, set you up for this one. EMac's son says, hey, Dad, if you're going to make a push for 2024, I'm going to have to help you with handling the general technology things as well as pronunciations. Touche and correct on both counts. Jordan, I think with that, we can get on out of here. You guys can follow Adam at Ship My Money DFS. I am at EMac DFS. Hang tight because Live Before Lock is coming up next, and they will find all new words to mispronounce. With that, gamers, good luck.
is happening, everybody? The MLB season winding down. We've only got 2 days left in the MLB regular season. Today, I'm going to be joined by Terry, and then tomorrow, to bring us home, it's going to be myself and Eric Lindquist on the final MLB Live Before Lock of the Year. As you guys come in, like the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel. We're sponsored by PrizePicks today. Terry, how are you feeling about the NBA season about to start, MLB season winding down? I know you're a baseball guy.
Yeah, I mean, it's always a sad part of the year as baseball season winds down. It's with us for so long. It just becomes a part of life during the summer and everything. So it's just reliable. It's a Tuesday night. You can say, hey, what's on TV? What can I throw on? The Yankee game, worst case scenario. So yeah, it's always a change of pace, but looking forward to NBA starting up, looking forward to hockey starting up. My Rangers should be pretty good this year. My Knicks, not so much. No Donovan Mitchell trade, but we got Jalen Brunson now. So that should be fun. But yeah, DFS wise, can't wait for NBA to start up. That's always a good one around here. And everybody kills it with the info. What time is Live Before Lock tomorrow? Because all those games start up at 4:00 Eastern, right?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure we're doing a 3 to 4 LBL, Eric and I, to close out the regular season. And then playoffs are a little weird this year as well, because I don't know if you've looked ahead to the schedule. It's almost entirely 1 and 2 game slates. They've kind of spaced it out to where there aren't a lot of overlapping games. So the wild card round will have some 4-game slates, but by and large part, we're looking at a 1-2 game baseball playoff slate. So not really full ones there. So really running out of time for baseball, but it's okay because we've got basketball starting soon. We've got football going on. And if you guys have not signed up for a Stokastic Plus package yet, you can get access to all of that when you sign up for the first time using the promo code MLB Live, which is not only going to cover you for today and tomorrow's baseball slates, because I know that that's not a whole lot of value being offered, Terry, but we've got football going on right now. And then, of course, basketball right around the corner. So we're going to have a lot of sites, or a lot of sports covered across all the different sites, I should say, in very short order. So busy season.
A couple big early hockey slates too, and that's starting up next couple of days.
Oh, there was a point in time where I played more DFS hockey. Maybe I will get into it a little bit in the upcoming week, especially because, like I said, these baseball slates are going to be really short ones. But yeah, especially if we're getting short baseball slates. But I've also said I'm going to get more into DFS hockey every single hockey season for the last 5 years. Last year, I built the whole new model and everything, and then never used it once. So we'll see how it comes out. But I am hoping to dive in a little bit more this year. Yeah, my MO as far as hockey goes used to be I would play at the start of the year, and I'd play during NBA All-Star break. And I had a year, I had a stretch 3 years in a row where I would win an NHL GPP during the NBA All-Star break. It didn't happen for me last year. It broke the streak, and I got my ass kicked. But other ones, it did work out. But other than that, I've been planning for the basketball season, so I'm really excited for it to start. My 2 big activities for the day, other than just my content, my NBA season planning. That was a big thing, making sure we have the schedule lined up. And I had to submit a stool sample today. Have you done this before?
You had to submit a stool sample up the ladder here at Stokastic? That's an odd request, but all right.
No, just in the mail to Eric. It's my doctor, because my doctor always wants me to get it done, and I don't want to for obvious reasons. Who wants to shit in a container? And he told me that just for.
I mean, I always shit into a container of some kind. I'm not just walking around shitting on the ground. Yeah, it depends on what kind of container.
Yeah, not if I'm not getting paid my usual $5. So he told me that just because some of the health risks involved with some of the medicine I take, I'm not allowed. He wouldn't give me more refills on my medicine unless I submitted a stool sample. So we really held. I was like, all right, I finally have to go get this done. So when did
medical blackmail?
Oh my god, yeah, it was terrible. So you have to, and you don't realize poop smells bad, but when it gets out of the water, it really smells bad. So that was my day. It's been an exciting time. We got baseball to talk about here as well. And I'm just wondering, how do you approach some of these slates at the tail end of the season, where we just see weird things happening in terms of the Astros? I don't think we're going to see their starters play all 5 innings. We saw a bunch of them come out early in yesterday's game. And then some pitchers, we're not going to see them go a full, 100 pitches, 6-7 innings. We're going to see some pitchers limited. Is that anything you take into your process when you're building lineups at this point in the year?
Yeah, I mean, it's making the pitching slate on this one a little bit difficult. Somebody asked in the Discord earlier, what's Terry doing with pitching today? And I just responded struggling, because I'm not entirely sure where pitching is breaking down. There are a couple very good pitchers that I think I'm just going to dump most of my shares into and just kind of ride with some chalk, because there's a lot of guys that I've got some questions about exactly how deep they're going to go into this game. Specifically, the Dodgers situation is just, it kind of sucks, because I'd love to get to Julio Urias in this spot. But like the guys we're talking about on the last show, they're basically committed to splitting this game evenly between him and Andrew Heaney. They did the same thing on Sunday with Tyler Anderson and Jackson, and it was a 5-4 split with Anderson starting the game, getting 5. That could be the way it breaks down, but I could easily see it going 4-5 the other way with Urias only getting 4. And that takes a big pitcher off the board. I've got questions about Verlander and how long they're going to let him go, despite it, being dusty, and he would have no issues with running him back out there if he wants to, I don't think. But there's got to be some kind of preciousness to him. And then you get like even guys like Eric Lauer, who I think he's still projecting well for me. I was talking about it earlier this morning. I cut his innings and he's still projecting well, but I don't know how deep he's going. So a lot of innings questions on this one. It's causing a little bit of havoc. I'm a little bit more confident in most of the bats. I do agree. You could see some of the stars come out. We've also got a lot of funky lineups with a lot of stars just sitting. So, we'll see where it breaks down, but the Astros would be one where I'd be a little concerned about the hitters, but they're not getting that much ownership. So if you get there early against Ranger Suarez, that said, it's also not a stack that I'm going out of my way for anyway, because I don't love the roster hitters against Ranger Suarez. So.
Yeah, and at least there has been some betting value to be had. Like I bet the Astros last night, and there was some weird markets available for them, especially because as soon as the Phillies clinched the playoff spot, I was like, all right, I think there's a pretty good chance guys are going to rest. They want to be on the Astros today. So I bet their money line. I bet them one thing that's kind of weird. They're minus like 230 on the money line now, but they were minus 110 to not bat in the 9th inning, which I thought was kind of like a weird pricing error type thing. So it's just little things like that where I think books are struggling to keep up with all these markets. And I just look for some inefficiencies like that I was able to find. And by the way, people are asking the medication, something called Viagra. I don't know if you've heard of this before, but yeah, so we'll get that up and running soon.
Get that up. Nice.
Yeah, we'll get it up and running soon. In terms of the pitchers, let's just start by breaking some of the ones down individually in terms of just the highest priorities. It's going to be really hard to go through all these pitchers individually with all the concerns we have with some of them. So I think let's just group some of the pay up guys together. And I guess Garrett Cole, Justin Verlander, they're kind of in their own tier, although also they're on the Garrett Cole's on the DK slate,
Correct.
But he's not on the FanDuel slate, which also makes this kind of tricky to talk about. So we'll do it, I guess, site by site, and then also kind of break it down tier by tier. But starting with DraftKings, Terry, we've got Garrett Cole projected for 45% ownership, Justin Verlander at 39%. These are the two pay up options as far as the pricing goes on DK. Do you have a lean between the two, and do you think the ownership is warranted?
I do think that the ownership's warranted. I don't necessarily have a lean between the two because I can see them both just being like, hey, 5 solid innings, boys. Thank you very much. Let me take the ball and go sit down, have a shower, whatever. But that said, I can see both of these pitchers putting up a pretty damn solid start in just 5 innings anyway. And on a day where there's not a lot of competition, there's not a lot of extreme upside, you might get a good enough kind of a fantasy score out of those guys. Then it just comes down to whether, does Jeffrey Springs come out and pitch a good game for the 7,400 that's just more valuable with a similar score, just because of the massive price difference between him and some of those guys. Similar story with like Lucas Giolito. I could see him doing that. He comes out and puts up an equal score, a 20 some odd points DK score, a 30 some odd point FanDuel score. If Cole or Verlander only gets 5, they do the same thing. Those starts are more valuable at lower salaries. So it all depends. Definitely a luxury having Cole on that DK slate, though. It's a lot more stark on FanDuel where it's Justin Verlander. If you're paying up, Zach Gallen is right there. I agree with what Adam was saying about us having Urias over projected right now. For me, it's Verlander, Gallen, and then probably Giolito and Lorenzen, and then a lot of meh. So it's a lot more stark, a lot thinner on FanDuel.
Yeah, and by the way, while I do have some pitch count concerns about guys like Verlander and Garrett Cole, I kind of have it about a lot of these guys. I don't about Zach Gallen. And also I saw something in the chat. Somebody said, well, Verlander's going for the Cy Young. Verlander's basically won the Cy Young. If you look at the odds at Sportsbooks, it's like minus 30,000 to win the award. So, I mean, I had 3 Cy Young bets this year in the American League. One of them was Justin Verlander. So I'm pretty happy with where that's at right now. But it's also, there's so much value on the slate and the offenses are so cheap that I kind of think the 5 innings from Verlander might be better than what we're getting at a lot of other pitchers anyway.
Yeah, and that's kind of how I think we need to attack this slate in terms of where we're just rostering pitching, is that we just consider it one of those days where it's the good enough kind of a start, even with the couple big names that we've got to work with. I think we're really hunting for that, considering all the innings issues across all these guys that are pretty unpredictable. Like we can't confidently say this guy's getting only 3 innings, this guy's getting 6 innings with most of these guys. So might as well take the top end as where I can. They're going to be popular, but I think it's justified.
Yeah, and then let's talk about some of these pitchers on FanDuel. And once again, we kind of have to go back and forth between the two sites. It's just one of the more confusing aspects about the slates at the end of the year, where the games are as different as we've ever seen across FanDuel and DraftKings on any one individual slate. And the pricing's a lot different. So over on FanDuel, we've got Verlander at 11-2, but then Julio Urias and Zach Gallen are also a lot more expensive on FanDuel than they are on DraftKings. Gallen is priced at $10,500. Urias currently priced at $10,400. What are you doing with those 3 pitchers in tournaments? And which one do you think makes for the best play, all things being considered projection and ownership?
Yeah, so for me, I'm definitely knocking Urias down some decent amount from where we've got him. He's not owned like at all based on our current projections, though. So while I disagree that he's probably with his second ranked probability of being a top 1%, the top overall starter here, I think there is some appeal at that ownership. If I can't confidently get it, but if I can get the 5 innings against Colorado, I think there's enough upside there, especially on a day where, like we said, we're kind of just hunting for good enough. So considering the very low single digit ownership on him, I think there's some appeal in getting to at least a handful of lineups. It's easy enough to get over 2.5% ownership. Zach Gallen, I'll confidently roster around the field. I don't think there's going to be any innings issues. Very good pitcher, good enough matchup. The price is high. I was hoping that high price would knock some of the ownership off of him. I was hoping we could have him more around 10% on FanDuel, where he's double that. But yeah, happy to get there. I think the interesting question there is, what are you doing with shares between Gallen and Lucas Giolito, who's coming in at only 7.5% ownership in a matchup against the Twins, positive leverage situation, versus the second lowest negative leverage situation for Gallen. So I do want a lot of shares of Gallen, but it'll be interesting to see where it breaks down against the cheaper Giolito.
Yeah, I also want to see really quickly on Urias. I'm going to look up just for like another input point here. I want to see if sports books have an over under for his outs today, right? Like I think that's a reasonable. I think this is a reasonable thing. By the way, Ranger Suarez limited to 65 pitches, 4 innings.
Oh jeez.
So take him off the board. Yeah,
I wasn't getting there anyway, like pitcher wise, but that changes maybe the outlook for the Astros. But then if you think that a lot of those guys are coming out after about that much of the game, then maybe it doesn't change that much of the outlook for the Astros stack. Just a weird day.
All right, let's see. It looks like there might not really be props listed for Urias. TK didn't have them. Pulling up FanDuel right now to see if they have anything there, which, by the way, really good indicator that nobody knows what the fuck's going on. Right. It looks like, we're not even messing with props here. And Urias, there's no props listed for Urias today. I assume that they opened up at a normal number this morning and just a bunch of people slammed the under, thinking he wasn't going very far. And books were just like, all right, we're yanking this off the market. So it does make it really hard to know what to do with Urias. He's low, very low owned today. And one thing I will say in his favor is while he does have some pitch count concerns, I think it's reasonable to assume Verlander and Cole do as well. So relative to his ownership, 2% on FanDuel, DK we have him projected for 11%. It's certainly not a cash game play, but for tournaments, I don't mind getting overweight to it just because the uncertainty could go in either directions. It could mean he pitches 3 innings, but it could mean we get 5 to 6. So I don't think Urias is a bad tournament option.
Yeah, for tournaments, I think it's sitting there, and like we're saying, it's if he's 2 and change owned, it's very easy to get well beyond the field on that kind of exposure, and you're getting to a very talented pitcher. He's in the competition for the NL Cy Young. If he had the innings, I think it's a good spot in just the vacuum. It just depends on that weird innings question, but that's kind of we're looking for that volatility in tournaments, and that's what's keeping the ownership away. That's what's creating the upside of the situation, and I think there's upside at $9,000 on the DK slate and only 13% ownership as well. That's a similarly interesting spot, and arguably equivalently low ownership.
Yeah, and then the other pitcher here who we've talked about, but I think the one that I feel safest about just overall across FanDuel and DraftKings is Zach Gallen, just because he's been so good. And I know we've brought him up in passing. We've talked about him. This is the pitcher who I just overall feel the best about FanDuel and DraftKings. You guys are playing cash games. I would advocate pretty strongly for Zach Gallen. I don't really see any reason for him to be limited. And he's been absurdly good in the second half of the season. One thing a little disappointing is with the Brewers getting eliminated from the playoffs last night. I thought that they would be sending in a lineup of mostly backups, kind of like what the Phillies did today. The Phillies are weirdly playing Bryce Harper than everybody else is, not regular players for them. But Zach Gallen's numbers in the second half of the season, he is a 1.27 ERA, and his underlying stats also absurdly good. 1.74 FIP, 2.52 xFIP, strikeout rate 31.7%, walk rate 5.2%. I don't know where this came from because Gallen's always been a good pitcher. Not quite this good, though. Like, these are silly numbers, and the matchups are all difficult. He's only been in tough matchups. It's not like he's pitching against the Reds and the Pirates every day. The recent outings for Gallen: on the road against the Astros, on the road against the Dodgers, against the Padres, in Coors Field, against the Brewers, against the Phillies, at San Francisco against the Giants, at Coors Field again. This guy has just had a murderer's row of competition, and he has just dominated in pretty much all of these starts. So I feel really good about getting to Gallen here, and I think that he, amongst the high-end guys, is the least likely to be limited.
Yeah, I agree with all of that. I think there's no reason really to expect him to come out early, although, maybe protect an arm, but I mean, it's not, nothing. He's the most reliable guy to pitch his full start out of the guys that I really want to get to here. 26.9% strikeout rate over 179 innings this year, 3.27 xFIP, lot to like. The 0.89 whip, doesn't get himself in any kind of trouble. Doesn't really allow much power upside. Really like the spot. The Brewers are good against righties over the course of the season. And like you mentioned, it is basically their regular lineup. 193 collective ISO against righties is second overall. They're 11% better than average creating runs. 22.9% strikeout rate. There's enough strikeouts. That's 20th out of 30 teams in baseball, but a 4.03% home run rate is second overall. So good team with good power, but he's got the skills to limit it. I see no issues with going to him. Like I said, I wish the 10-5 was keeping him a little bit lower owned on FanDuel, but on a day like today, I'm just willing to grab the reliability, eat the chalk, and try and win him with bats.
The last time Zach Gallen allowed more than 3 runs in a start was July 8th. So it's been a minute. A lot of good starts mixed in there. And also some of those other starts. I mean, the Dodgers start 8 innings against the Dodgers, 13 strikeouts, no walks. Well,
it's funny too, like what you're mentioning with all the good matchups. I feel like I haven't used him all that frequently in DFS. Like, he's not a pitcher that I've been playing a ton of. And I feel like I've probably been missing out with that, but hopefully we make up for all that today.
Yeah. So the other thing with Gallen too, he hasn't been popular on most of these slates. Like, how many Gallen slates have there been over this stretch?
Yeah.
Like, I've gotten a little more hip to it in the last 3, 4, 5 starts or so, but I'm on the same page as you. There was a long time where I wasn't dying to roster Zach Gallen, and it was just he was on slates with, at least to my recollection, with higher owned pitchers that seemed to be in better spots. And part of it too is because, just think what our prior information was on Zach Gallen going into the season. If you were told, like, hey, you could play Zach Gallen on the road against the Brewers or Garrett Cole against the Rangers, like, you're just playing, and the price point not all that dissimilar for DraftKings purposes. Cole $1,000 more, but you're just playing Cole all day in that spot. Yep. So there's just been a lot of these spots like, oh, Scherzer's on the slate, I'll play him over Gallen. Oh, Cole, Verlander, whoever. But Gallen, at least how he's pitched lately, belonged in that conversation. Let's start to talk about some of the cheaper options. And I know you mentioned Lucas Giolito. Here's what trips me up about Giolito. He stinks. Like, his numbers this year have been so bad, and he's kind of getting priced more expensive again, which is not ideal. Got Giolito up to $8,500 over on DK. He's $9,600 on FanDuel. I get he's had some strikeout upside this year, but it's kind of hard to measure him based on some of his underlying stats, because all of the numbers that we've seen on Giolito kind of indicate he's a guy that's probably going to underperform relative to his underlying numbers, because his home run to fly ball rate is always well above league average. So his home run to fly ball rate this year, 14.9%. It's never been below 13% at any point in time in his career. So some of the underlying numbers will just look at it and be like, well, he's bad home run luck. No, he's just a pitcher that gives up a lot of home runs. So I actually do think the 5 ERA is much more of an accurate indicator than the 3.59 xFIP. I know the matchup against the Twins is not the hardest one in the world, especially because the Twins have struggled. But Giolito has also had nothing but easy matchups for the most part in the second half of the year, and he's pretty consistently failed in them.
Yeah, it's somewhat concerning for sure. There has been a good amount more hard hit this year against him as well, which is contributing to the high home run rate. And like you said, once you see something like that, where it's, we don't necessarily worry about wonky home runs and a little bit more contact, incidental contact for one season in a good career. But when you see a pattern, you do see a pattern, and there's a clear pattern with him allowing more home runs per fly ball than league average, and being, a little bit of a concern for a guy who is an otherwise talented pitcher. XFIP is a stat that filters out that home run wonkiness. That's got him at a 3.60 or 3.59 if round down, not rounding, versus a 3.75 from last year. So by that stat, he's technically better than last year. He's lost some of swinging strike. He's lost from some of his strikeout rate. He's walking some more, much higher whip this year too. So he's suffering from some BABIP as well. When you get the BABIP, when you get the higher walk rate, and you get the high home run rate, that becomes a problem. That becomes a source of run creation. So I do still like the pitcher. I do think he can get it under control and become, the Lucas Giolito of old. And maybe he's just never going to be that elite Verlander style ace. He's just going to be a good high end pitcher. But I do think he's probably a little bit maybe in between what we used to think of him and what we see this year. I'll be taking shares of him. I mean, he's only 8.2% owned at 9,600 on FanDuel. I think there's enough upside on the strikeouts alone against this Twins team that we can grab shares there at that ownership, 9,600, 9.9% owned at an even cheaper price on DK. That seems like a good enough spot, particularly for tournaments on a day that's completely volatile and on the pitching side. I think it makes sense to grab shares of.
So let's look at some of the more cost-effective starting pitcher, let's say the really cheap ones, because most of the guys we've talked about have been the more expensive ones. And this is a little more pertinent for DraftKings purposes than FanDuel, because there are some pitchers that are really cheap on DK I think are worthwhile. FanDuel maybe a little bit less so, but we'll talk about them in a second. But first, starting with DK, the chalk of the salary saving pitchers is Sean Manaea, who's been really disappointing this year. I don't know what happened to Sean Manaea. Maybe it's just you take him out of Oakland, which is a crazy pitcher-friendly park, and just something doesn't suit him as well in San Diego. But he is at home in San Diego against the San Francisco Giants team, and he's priced all the way down to $6,500. He's fairly popular today at 36% ownership, but I don't really mind it too much. We have with a 33% chance to be a top 2 value pitcher on this slate, and there just aren't that many cheap pitchers to really get behind. So what do you make of Manaea as a chalk option when he's $6,500 on DK?
Yeah, I mean, between the two, if we're saying who do I still think has the upside, has the talent, in between him and Giolito, I lean Giolito. I would prefer that. I would prefer to get to him at much lower ownership. I agree with the 30-ish% ownership at 6,500 being probably about correct on the DK slate. There's enough upside for him at that price. What I don't necessarily think is correct is the 20% ownership on the FanDuel slate at 8,100. That feels high. I don't have our leverage number in front of me at the moment, but I can click over to it. But I'm guessing that's going to come up a little high on him. Yeah, negative 10.9 leverage score. So that's pretty concerning there. He's our 4th ranked pitcher in terms of probability of success. That's with Urias ahead of him. I also have him 4th, but it's not with Urias. I've got him behind Lauer, Verlander, Lorenzen, and actually Gallen. So he's 5th. So I think there's enough upside there, but I think I'm going to undercut the field fairly dramatically. And I would rather get to shares of Jeffrey Springs. I would rather get to shares of Gallen for sure, Verlander, Lauer. So yeah, I'm going to spread out ownership. I don't need to be concentrated on Manaea.
So I'll ask you the same question about FanDuel, and then we've got a super chat here from Jorge that we'll hit on afterwards. Well, actually, before we do that, I want to ask you, are there any pivot options you see for really cheap on DK to get away from Manaea, or should we just be paying up for pitcher? Because if we look at the other pitchers that are cheap, the only one that I really view as being, I'd say maybe serviceable would be Mike Lorenzen, just because of the matchup against the Oakland A's. But any of these other cheap pitchers that are, let's say, sub 7K on DK that stand out to you, the group is Michael Lorenzen, Ranger Suarez isn't.
Scratch
Ryan
Suarez.
Feltner, Josh Winder, Kobe Allard. It's a who's who of aces at the bottom there.
Yeah, it's Lorenzen for sure. And it's, it's not necessarily something that you can say with a lot of confidence. 4.24 xFIP for the season, a 4.52 ERA, a 10.6% walk rate is a little concerning, a 1.30 whip, but it's an outstanding matchup against the A's. Like, they take some of those concerns off the table, which is how bad they are. I do think the kid's got some strikeout upside. He's at a 20.2% strikeout rate over 91 2/3. But Adam was talking about just the pure nature of his stuff. He should probably be a little bit better for strikeouts. strikeouts, and there's plenty of strikeout in this lineup for him. So I think at that price, 6,800 on DK, he's well worth a pivot there. And I would be enthusiastically moving shares from all that Manaea ownership over to him. Just it doesn't make much sense that he's going that low owned by comparison. At 8,300 on FanDuel, I probably will be invested in that spot. I think it's probably worthwhile because nobody's going there. And I don't see, that big an innings issue here. It's a tournament play. I mean, you're rolling the dice on a tournament on a kid with some upside without tremendous results this season, but nobody else going there. I think it's worth doing.
And then just getting back to some of these cheaper pitchers we have on FanDuel, talked about how you think Michael Lorenzen, 2% owned, matchup against the Oakland A's, warrants some consideration there in large field tournaments. And these other low-owned guys stand out to you. We've got Jeffrey Springs, Nathan Eovaldi, Eric Lauer, Cole Irvin, Ranger Suarez, Ryan Feldner, Josh Winter, all these guys projected for 1 to 2% ownership. Any of these other guys that seem worthwhile to you?
Springs has to be fairly worthwhile. I think 26.3% strikeout rate over 132 and a third. He's on that list of, maybe a little bit of a short pitch count. But I haven't seen anything announced of like we saw with Ranger Suarez, where they're saying, hey, 4 and he's done. 7,400 on DK, 2.6% ownership. You're just buying strikeout rate and strikeout upside at that price and that popularity. I think that's worth doing unless we see some news in the next little bit about a specific hard limitation on him. Same story for him on FanDuel at 8K. I think you could also, it's a weird day. Like we've been saying, it's a day where a good enough start out of one of these guys could get you there. I don't think an upside start or at least a good enough start out of Nate Eovaldi on the other side of that same game is out of the question. He has not been good overall this year, or he's been average overall this year. He's extremely bad for home run upside, 4.75% home run rate, a 45.7% hard hit, a 10.8% barrel rate, but he's still got a 3.41 xFIP. He's only got a 4.1% walk rate, 22.4% league average-ish strikeout rate. So maybe it's an upside day for Nate Eovaldi against a mediocre Rays team that is a playoff team. But Adam and I were talking about it this morning. It's just kind of mysterious as you look name by name in this lineup, how they're this good. So maybe we see upside there. We talked about Giolito. I don't think much of the Bauman, Feltner, Winder portion of this. I wrestle with saying the name Cole Irvin here, but maybe pitching in that ballpark at 71 on DK in particular against that Angels lineup, maybe there's a little upside, but it's not a play for me, I don't think.
Yeah, and by the way, we should address Michael Dolan in the chat is bringing something up, which is true. This came across my radar a few minutes ago. This is from Susan Slusser, who is a beat reporter for the A's and the Giants. She says, it sounds as if Alex Cobb will start for the Giants tonight. But this is not confirmed by the Giants yet, and they're still waiting for word on it. So Alex Cobb could potentially be pitching for the Giants today. What would you make of that information if he ends up starting?
No, I mean, it would be interesting. What did he, Joker, be quiet. Sorry, the dog's, dog's going nuts. He's excited about Alex Cobb, clearly. Just pulling up his game log. When was the last time he pitched? Because didn't he just go 30th on Friday he went. So this is so it would be a short rest start. That's 3 days rest.
It would be very bizarre.
5 innings on Friday through 90 pitches. I don't know. I think we'd be seeing this. That would probably be a case where it's like his usual bullpen day, and they're going to give him 2-3 innings of game action instead. I can't really see it being a full start.
Yeah, I'm just looking. Unfortunately, this is the only thing we have is this one tweet here from Beat Report. So it's not unfounded. This is not somebody throwing weird information in the YouTube chat. This is something, and I'll put the tweet in there as well. I'll pull it up and put it into the chat so people could see it. But yeah, she did put in a follow-up tweet that it's not confirmed. It seems like she was just kind of guessing.
Helpful.
It would seem weird to me if that's what they did, but I mean, she's obviously more plugged into the team than I am here from New Jersey. But here's the tweet.
Yeah, I mean, I trust her more than my wild speculation and flailing for any kind of answer to your question, for sure. But yeah, especially since she's saying she's not sure, that's a concerning spot and one that I can't imagine putting it into any DFS lineups at this point.
So here's where, by the way, let's look up. I don't even know what Alex Cobb's price is because we started the show and Alex Cobb was not the starter for the Giants. It was not a consideration at all. He is $8,100 on DK
and 8,000 on FanDuel.
I will say this. If he ends up starting with, because we never get news that comes out at this point in time for baseball where there's like a pitching change. It very rarely. He's going to be unowned in tournaments. That in itself is something that if he's confirmed, I would be willing to late swap to some lineups of him just because we have so many concerns about all the pitchers today. If he's confirmed as the starter, give me the chance of actually getting a good pitcher on an already sketchy slate at what's probably going to be like 0.5% ownership.
I don't totally disagree for tournament play. But I'll push back just on the idea that it's just 3 days rest. He just went on Friday and he threw 90 pitches. I can't really see him getting more than like 3 innings here if they roll him out as a starter. I really can. I think it's just his bullpen day. And they're saying, hey, instead of going out to the pen and throwing during the game, throw, 2-3 innings to start the game. And then we'll pull you. I'd be concerned. It is one of those days, like we've said multiple times, where even a 3-inning start out of Alex Cobb, if he finds 4 or 5 strikeouts across the course of that, maybe that's enough as an SP2 on DK that's unowned. I wouldn't play it on FanDuel where we need, even we might not get a quality start out of anybody, but now you're probably taking the win bonus off the table too if he doesn't go 5. So I don't like it on FanDuel. I think you can maybe get away with it in tournaments on DK.
Yeah, and more information needed. I wish we were able to update this, but this is like an NBA-esque thing. We don't know who the pitcher is for the Giants. We're 28 minutes until lock, and it just pay attention to the beat.
It's a good warm-up.
True. We got a couple weeks to go to literally 2 weeks. I think NBA starts 2 weeks from today. So awesome. Keep an eye on those beat reporters there. I know we'll have News God posting information in the Discord chat because if we do find out that by some reason an hour from now he's going to be pitching an unlimited, then that could be a really low-owned tournament play. So keep an eye out on any kind of news. And also, most importantly, Mitchell Welsh saying that he's got the green check mark on DK, which also I'm excited to troll Eric.
Oh, that's your only source. Yeah. Green check mark on DK and playing 150 lineups. That's all you really need to know about DFS.
Absolutely. Or if they're confirmed in the lineup on FanDuel, which is absolutely never wrong whatsoever, then
FanDuel's never wrong about anything.
Then it's the real deal. Any other talking points for you at pitcher?
No, I think we chewed up most of them. I did throw Cole Irvin into the mix there at the end, but like I said, it's not a spot that I really like. Just maybe chasing a little bit of strikeout upside, but he doesn't have much personal strikeout upside. 17.2% for the season and on 175 innings, 4.33 xFIP, a 5.0% walk rate. He's been serviceable enough. He's pitching in a good pitching environment, but even with a lineup that's basically limited to Trout and Ohtani, they do have Anthony Rendon back in this lineup. They're good enough that I don't love taking a pitcher this bad against them. But at 1.4%, 7,100 in a weird tournament kind of an environment like we're talking about today, I could see getting a little bit beyond the field on DK if you wanted to.
All right. Today's show, sponsored by PrizePicks. If you haven't signed up at PrizePicks yet, easy to do. You click on the link below, you head on over to PrizePicks, you make a deposit, and they're going to match that deposit up to $100. But make sure you click on the link below because you want to get credited for that money by starting your account with no free money. We get up to $100 of free money. And now, Terry, you and I, we're going to break down some PrizePicks props. And to say the least, it's a little sketchy. They don't have that many props up because of some of the uncertainty with pitchers. So stuff, like Urias, Cole not being listed. Oh, no, we do have Cole listed here, but there's no Urias that's listed here.
And just so nobody gets concerned, the sketchiness is coming from baseball and all these unsure situations. It's not our great sponsor over there, so definitely.
Oh yeah.
Don't be worried about that.
To clarify, it's all baseball and the weird things that are happening at the end of the season. But just with some of the potential concerns that there could be with Garrett Cole today, over under of 8 strikeouts seems fairly lofty to me. Like the idea that he's going to regularly get to 9 for this to lose. How many strikeouts do you have Cole projected for? And does the under 8 strikeouts make some sense to you?
Yeah, I think that one feels pretty good. I can see him getting hooked fairly quickly in this one. Booney's got a quick hook anyway. And just with the idea that like they don't need to win this game. They don't need him to go out there and put up a monster start. You saw Severino chasing the no-hitter and they gave him more innings than I was comfy with the other day. The last thing that kid needed was to be chasing a no-hitter the other day. If Cole comes out and he's having that kind of a game, do they give him the full start? Yeah, probably. But I just don't think we need to be there. And that feels like a high number to me. So yeah, I'd be comfortable going low. I don't actually have a projection on him just because he's not on the FanDuel slate though.
Yeah, fair enough. I'm taking a side of that. I would lean towards the under just because I think there's a chance he only goes 4 or 5 innings today. Yeah. The next prop that stands out, and this is one per our projections here, I think Jeffrey Springs has been an underrated pitcher all year. He has been just really, really solid. And this isn't necessarily my favorite slate to get to him for DFS purposes, but his over under for strikeouts over on PrizePicks, 4.5. We have him right around 5.5 for today. And I think that's sensible. The numbers for Springs this year, 2.45 ERA, 3.24 expected ERA, but most importantly, because it's a strikeout prop, 26.3% K rate. For his MLB career, 26.6% K rate. Should we be looking at the over 4.5 strikeouts for Jeffrey Springs? Because that's something I'm leaning towards.
Yeah, I like that a lot. I've got him projected similar to the site, sitting at an implied strikeout number of 5.89. So nice little strikeout total. And we mentioned the strikeout rate, where you're looking to buy cheap strikeouts when going to him for DFS purposes with nobody on him for ownership. So I like doubling down on that spot and grabbing that over. Yeah.
And then other than that, let's see what else looks decent over on PrizePicks. Some of these games. Oh, you got Lucas Giolito. All right, so I'm curious to see if you have a lean on this. Giolito. He's been bad this year, but the one thing he has done is generate strikeouts. Do you have a lean on over under 5.5 Ks for Giolito?
I've got him just barely over. My implied number is 5.77. My projected number is 5.88, giving him a slight nudge upward. But yeah, that's very close. I probably wouldn't take that as a bet.
Yeah. All right. Fair enough to stay away from that. So PrizePicks, you guys have any other questions, you can throw them in the chat or ask me in Discord. But let's move on to some of the top stacks of the slate and answer Jorge's question. It's still been on my mind. I wanted to make sure, though, that we wrapped up the pitchers and just made it a little more, cohesive with everything fitting together. But Jorge, super chat. We appreciate you a lot, Jorge. How would you guys tackle the stacks and stack size given the uncertainty on some good hitters? Favorite low-owned stack and pitcher, and then 3. Can we tie for one more time for first place tonight? I would like that, Jorge. I wouldn't mind if you and I split another prize pool here to end the regular season.
There you go.
But are you changing anything with your stack sizes for today? I am not. It's still 5-man stacks for me on DK. I think we should be making 4-man stacks on FanDuel. Does that change at all for you with some of the uncertainty with offenses and whatnot?
No, not for me. I'm still full stacking and usually looking to go full stack or full, 4-3-1 on FanDuel, 4-4. At worst, I go like 3-3 with 2 1-offs or a 2-man. So I'm not really deviating from that.
And then the next part of this question, favorite low-owned stack and favorite low-owned pitcher. So I know that Jorge plays on DraftKings. So I will say my favorite low-owned pitcher on DK. Man, it's tough. I'm going to say Springs at 7,400, only projected for 3% ownership. Because the pitchers that are picking up ownership, we still have Giolito around 10%. So if I'm going with anybody who's sub that number, I'm going to go Jeffrey Springs at 3%. He's somebody.
Yeah, and especially because I can save 1,100 on him from Giolito going down. So yeah, I agree with that. He should be higher owned at that price, just given the strikeouts. Buy some cheap strikeouts and with nobody else doing it. It makes a ton of sense.
Yeah, and then in terms of favorite low-owned stacks, let me refresh the stack ownership to make sure it hasn't changed. I'm actually giving you a low-owned stack for today. My favorite low-owned stack.
It's certainly not going to be the Dodgers because they're
not low-owned. I'm kind of leaning towards the Twins against Giolito, and I understand the merits for Giolito himself. But at the same time, I was mentioned before, he's generally sucked this year. And it's the way that he sucks. The way he has his bad starts is giving up a lot of home runs, which is just conducive to opposing teams putting up big fantasy scores. So we talked about Giolito before, 14.9% home run or fly ball rate. Home runs allowed this year. He's had a bunch of starts who's given up multiple home runs overall for the year, 24 homers allowed. So just considering all that information, and also he's not working deep into these games because he's been inefficient with his pitch counts. In terms of just a low-owned stack, I'm going to say the Twins. In reality, almost every team on today's slate is kind of, well, actually the White Sox are picking up ownership. The Yankees are picking up ownership. The Dodgers are. But outside of the Dodgers, not like anything is crazy popular. Do you have a preferred low-owned stack tonight, Terry?
I think that's a good answer to that question. To give them a little bit of a different look, I'll say the Angels on the other side of that Cole Irvin spot that I was talking about just a few minutes ago. They're third ranked on our DK board with an 8.3% probability of being your top stack, only 6.2% owned. So a decent little positive leverage score there. They've got a ding in our stack score column as compared to several of the teams that are behind them. But when you look at the popularity, I think it kind of evens out and you get some interesting bets. Like everybody's thinking about this Angels team. They're getting Anthony Rendon back in the middle of this lineup, 3,600 on DK at third base, only 5.1% popular. He wasn't having a good season to start. Then he's been out with injury for a long time, but that's a formerly star caliber bat for very cheap in the middle of what could be a productive lineup against this pitcher. Certainly enough balls in play against Cole Irvin here. Certainly enough hard hit, 40% hard hit and 9.8% barrel rate. So I could see some upside for home runs out of here. And you've got a cheap Joe Adele. So there's some interesting ways to go with this Angels lineup, depending on what comes out of it. So as a cheap alternative, that's one way to go. I think I like the Twins lineup a little bit better, but I like the matchup against Cole Irvin a little bit better.
And then one other thing I'll point out about the Angels and their ownership is five-man stacks tend to be deceptively low owned on DraftKings because if you're just looking at the top stacks tool, it won't always look like it's a 2 or 3% owned stack, but it's because Shohei Ohtani and Mike Trout are always picking up some ownership. The other piece in the lineup just don't tend to be popular. So you do have a fairly contrarian stack. You're making a 5-man stack of the Angels because it's really just those two guys that end up pulling the weight in the ownership. Do have one other question to get to here in our Discord channel, and then we will talk more about some of our favorite stacks. But Jets World wants to know, I'm so lost. Who are the cash pitchers today on DK? So one of them for me is Zach Allen, just because he's a pitcher I feel the best about. Right? Like we don't have, he's the one that I think that they're, we just got official, by the way. Alex Cobb will start today for the Giants. So it is happening. Any
word on his pitches or anything? I assume you would have said, but.
No, the team actually tweeted out with 2 middle fingers in the air. So make it what you will. Nobody knows. One of them to me is going to be Zach Allen, just because I feel the best about his pitch count. I don't think that he's going to be subject to some of the same other limitations that other pitchers will. And the other one is going to be Garrett Cole, just based on ownership. Our most recent ownership update has Garrett Cole north of 50% owned. If that's going to be the case, just ride with him as the other guy and just X out a lot of the field. And just, I think that's the way to do it, is you just kind of ride with what the field's doing there with Garrett Cole. So those would be my 2-man pitching combinations on DK. Do you see it differently, Terry?
I have no major pushback to that, but I would say there might be upside in trying to work in Jeffrey Springs at the $7,400 price.
Cash,
just because
first cash game lineup.
Yeah, well, I think that ownership number is broken on Springs. I don't think that's the correct ownership for him at that price tag. So I think he can get through with him at that price, or Manaea at the super discount and all the ownership. That's seems like the more obvious of the cash plays, but I just think the positioning by the field on that is wrong. So I would consider that, but I think your call with Gallen and Cole and just ride with the premium upside in the chalk makes probably the most sense.
All right. So EMac's asking me, let me do some further. This is Alex Cobb situation. I'm not a fan of it. EMac wants to know, does that tweet mean 11 pitches or 11 outs for Cobb? Boy, what does this mean? What happened? All right. So Rodon's done for the year. That's been announced officially. EMac, could you throw the tweet you're referencing into?
Did he mean because double middle fingers 1-1? Was that just?
Okay.
Was he just?
All right.
Was he just putting a button?
I forgot.
Yeah, I think
Listen,
that might have been it.
You're on the show. You just say a lot of stuff, and I totally forgot a joke I made 3 minutes ago because I may look younger, but internally I'm actually EMac's age. So there we go. Yeah, I got it, EMac. All right. Yeah, that's my bad. I'm an idiot. In terms of Alex Cobb, I don't know what to make of his pitch count. Don't know what to make of his
no idea whatsoever. Yeah, I'm sticking with my theory that he just threw 90 some odd pitches 3 days ago, and this is a bullpen session for him, 4 innings. So I'm going to skip him for DFS purposes, but I can see the argument for nobody's going to be playing it this close to 16 minutes out from lock. Not a lot of people are going to be able to get that into their tournament lineup. So I can see the upside of it, but I'm not going to be taking it.
All right, let's get back to the stacks and let's talk about the Dodgers, the most popular team by a mile on DraftKings and FanDuel. DK projected for 19% ownership, the most popular team. Nobody else comes close. Over on FanDuel, I mean, this ownership is just insane. 27% ownership on FanDuel. Terry, how are you going to approach the Dodgers, who have the highest team total of the slate by a pretty wide margin and for good reason, but they are so popular?
Yep. Say it with me out there, chat. The bottom of the Dodgers lineup is a place that I like to go to on these a lot of the time. I bring it up all the time. A lot of cheap hitters down there, a lot of guys with a lot of premium contact, a lot of power, former MVP down there a lot of the time at low ownership, very low price. So that's going to be my strategy with getting to the Dodgers. They project fantastically for me. Basically everybody in the lineup, not named Gavin Lux or Austin Barnes, is over the magic number and well over it in my home run model. So somebody who's asking for a home run pick, the lowest owned of the Dodgers would be my home run pick right now. That looks like Cody Bellinger on our last update, but he'll probably get a little bit more popular here. But I do like the spot for Cody Bellinger there. And then just, I thread the Dodgers together with whatever low owned stacks you can get to. In the raw sense, I'll probably be a little bit below the field's massive, 35 and change % ownership on most of these guys. But I want to be in the Dodgers business today. It looks like a great spot going against Feltner. 42% hard hit over 91 and a third this year, 3.71% home run rate, 8.2% walks, plenty of contact with only a 19.8% strikeout rate. Nothing not to like about the matchup other than the popularity and arguably the price.
Yeah, and the popularity, it's still high on DraftKings, but it's not quite as high as it is on FanDuel. And like you said, you could get a little bit of price savings and ownership savings by going towards the bottom end of that order. Mm-hmm. It is a little interesting to me, though, right now that we've got Verlander, Cole is the chalk on DraftKings, and the Dodgers offense. Like where are people finding the salary savings? Well, like how I don't. Something doesn't totally add up to me. Either Cole's going to come in lower owned, or the Dodgers are, because it's just not possible that all of these things are just uber chalk today. Something has to give. There's a salary cap limitation.
Yeah, you do have the first three hitters priced over 5,700, then Muncy at 5,000. There's cheaper bats with Trace Thompson in there at 26 and Austin Barnes at 29, but now we're not even rostering premium Dodgers if we're doing that. So yeah, I don't really see that combination coming together quite that frequently, but it's definitely going to be popular. I mean, people are going to be flocking to these pieces. Maybe, it's just a matter of how frequently they can get them together and with what else.
Yeah, no, I definitely think that we're going to see maybe some of the popularity is there, but it's just kind of spread out amongst different lineups. Gut feeling though, maybe Cole just comes in a little bit lower on that 55% number, wherever we have it at right now. Talking through some of the other offenses, because one team that is starting to stand out to us, and this is going to be DraftKings specific because they're not on the FanDuel slate, the Yankees projected for 9% ownership. So, somewhat high, but we have with 12% top stack odds. Do the Yankees make sense to you against Colby Allard? And is Aaron Judge finally going to homer today?
Yeah, this has to be the spot, right? We've got Tinoco opening the game, we think, and then probably followed by Allard. A lot of upside for all these righty power bats in the Yankees lineup. We get a pretty standard version of the Yanks lineup. Judge, Stanton, Oswaldo Cabrera hitting third, Josh Donaldson, DJ. So no Gleyber Torres, but decent version of the lineup. You can definitely roster it 1 through 7 with Harrison Bader hitting 7th, and then take shares of Trevino and Hicks as you need them, but you don't really need to get too aggressive with those guys. But yeah, I could see the top end coming through. The question becomes, if the Yanks get out to a big lead, what happens? If Aaron Judge hits 62, does he get yanked? There are questions about that. But we've got so many questions on this slate. You just don't want to quibble with upside bats like those. So I'm happy to get to shares of those guys if I was playing on DK.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of the teams that I think warrants the most ownership. Certainly the Yankees, not just because the top stack odds are second highest on the slate, but think of it this way also. 12% top stack odds for the Yankees, 14% for the Dodgers, yet the Dodgers are more than double the ownership. I'd actually prefer to get ownership to the Yankees over the Dodgers with all that being considered. Now, going back to the FanDuel slate, Terry, outside of the Dodgers, what is the next team do you think warrants the next most consideration in your builds?
Let's see what's coming up. This obviously is going to need a little bit of work. I was talking about the Angels before, and on FanDuel, they're coming up even more aggressively because Anthony Rendon is still at the dead minimum 2,000. FanDuel, I guess, forgot who he is. So they're going to be coming up quite a bit. There's just enough cheap bats and cheap power upside. They're coming up second right now for me as I do this sort. We'll see how that works out as I put a little bit of a thumb on the scales, but I think they're definitely interesting. I think the White Sox, who you talked about a little bit before, are definitely interesting against Josh Winder. Plenty of upside there. They've been disappointing overall for the entire course of the season. Adam and I were talking about it this morning. I'm not sure with as much as it's probably the biggest spot I've lost with this year, but I think I'm going to go right back to it because Josh Winder, 16.5% strikeout rate over 64 2/3, a 4.03% home run rate. There's a lot of power upside in this lineup. Joan Moncada, Jose Abreu, Eloy Jimenez, Gavin Sheets, Jasmine Grandal down in the 7 spot. I don't love Elvis Andrus. Everybody knows that. But him, AJ Pollock, even Adam Engel hitting 9th. There's a lot of different ways you can go with that White Sox lineup. So they're interesting. And there are spots that you can hide some of that ownership too. They're a little bit popular on the top end, but like on DK, Pollock and Grandal, both under 10% owned. On FanDuel, Grandal coming in at 1.5%, Pollock at 12.9%, and then the top end guys are only in the mid-teens. So I think there's enough that you can just put it together however you want.
Yeah, and as far as that team goes, we have them right now with the second highest top stack odds on the slate. There's really 3 teams that are picking up significant top stack odds on the FanDuel slate. In our top stacks tool, the Dodgers, the White Sox, the Angels being the other one, all teams that we've gone over. Over on DK, it's kind of tiers, Dodgers 1, Yankees 2, and then it's a bunch of other teams behind them. But the outlook quite a bit different on the 2 slates just because of the different games being included on DraftKings that aren't on FanDuel. If you're going contrarian at offense, Terry, what stands out to you from a contrarian standpoint? So an offense, let's say, that's sub 5% owned on FanDuel, and then I'll do the same for DK and look for a lower, like really low owned offense that I think has upside that's going overlooked.
So there's a little bit of a change. The Padres were sitting slightly below 5, and they still will be, but now they'll be facing Cobb for an indeterminate amount of time. So that's probably going to change the probability on them. I don't love that. Geez, the Giants against Sean Manaea, I think there could be a little bit of sneaky upside. They're cheap. There's some of that right-handed pop that we like in that lineup, and he's just not had a good year like we talked about, but it's not a super standout spot. It's not like they project through the roof for me for power, but I can get to low-owned cheap bats. They're a definite value source. Everybody in the lineup, 3,000 or less on FanDuel. Everybody in the lineup, 44 or less on DK in the projected, and some good right-handed bats against a lefty like Manaea, who for the season, 152 innings, a 4.45% home run rate, 42.2% hard hit. He's been struggling. So maybe we throw some JD Davis at him at low ownership, Tyro Estrada, Wilmer Flores, everybody knows can hit lefties. So there's some appeal there, and they're a good value source. You can put them together with the Dodgers. They should probably be more popular on both sides, actually.
Yeah, I totally think that makes some sense. As far as the, let's see, low owned stack to look at over on DK. Oh, by the way, let me refresh to see if we have Alex Cobb in here now. Is there merit at this point to go into the Padres just with some of the weirdness with the Cobb situation as well, just in terms of we don't know how deep he's going into the game. He's pitching on short rest, which is weird in itself for the end of the regular season. This is the dumbest thing ever because Alex Cobb is a pitcher who has a very significant injury history. He's always had trouble staying healthy. I know he's pitched really well this year, but at the same time too, with it being short rest, maybe potential for some issues with that. We've got the Padres being low owned. When there's a situation that I just don't know what's happening, it kind of makes sense in tournaments just for that reason.
Yeah, in terms of grabbing some of the Padres bats, I do think that makes sense. Odds are we're getting the short outing here, or at least in my opinion, and then into the bullpen, probably some Jarrell Cotton, who had been the projected starter earlier in the day. So I think we're going to see some funkiness out of the Giants pitching staff here, and it makes some sense. You know, you do have the consideration that Cobb is going to be cut down, maybe cutting down some of the upside over the first plate appearance for each one of the guys in the lineup over the first 3-4 innings. So maybe it's not quite the probability that it was, but they're very low owned, and there are obviously some very, very good hitters in this lineup. So yeah, grab some shares of Will Myers, Manny Machado, Josh Bell. There is no Juan Soto in the lineup today, so that is a little bit of a ding from where they're normally going to be at, but I think that's also reflecting in the ownership. Brandon Drury, only 4,700, 1.6% owned on DK, 3,800 multi-position eligible, 5.8% owned on FanDuel. It makes enough sense to get to this team, sure.
Yeah, and once again, I can't even put data to it because Cobb has been really good this year, which is always annoying in terms of like I can't look at the data and be like, hey, look, Alex Cobb is bad. That's not the case. It's really I just don't know what to make of the entire situation. But nobody's playing the Padres. Nobody's going to play Alex Cobb. It seems like an easy way to differentiate in tournaments. What are the other offenses that really stand out to you that we haven't talked about today, if any?
Let me jump back over to the board here. Let's see. We talked about the White Sox. The Rays against Nate Eovaldi with all of that premium contact that he allows is another, at least semi-interesting spot. We talked about it at the top of the show. Adam and I talked about it this morning. It's just an unimpressive lineup as you look down it on name recognition, but there's a lot of premium contact in this lineup. Multiple guys with, mid 40s and above hard hit, multiple guys over and around 10% barrel rate. Well, two guys, Ji-Man Choi and Christian Bethancourt, both over around 11.6, 11.9% barrel rates. And they're all very cheap. So there is some premium contact. There is some idea of some home run upside. They're getting a little bit of popularity around guys at the top of the lineup, like Yandy Diaz, like Wander Franco. But the other guys in the middle of the lineup, Isaac Paredes, 4.3% owned in the middle of the lineup, 2,700 on FanDuel, 3,800 on DK. That's an easy enough spot to grab as a cleanup hitter and just hope for some home run upside against a pitcher who yields it all the time. 4.75% home run rate for Eovaldi this season.
Yeah, and the other thing too with Eovaldi is, if memory serves correct, let me look at his splits. He's been a really good pitcher the last couple of years and pitched fairly well at the start of the year, but he got hurt and just hasn't been the same pitcher since coming back. So let me look at some of these splits for Eovaldi to make sure I'm not just, all right. So this is pretty concerning with Eovaldi. First half of the year, 25.4% K rate, 16.1% the second half of the year. That's a really significant drop off and really indicates a pitcher that kind of has something wrong with them. It's kind of weird to me with the Red Sox being this far out of the playoff race. And by this far out, like obviously they've been eliminated, but they've been eliminated for an extended period of time. Like why they would even be throwing Eovaldi out here? Because the fact that his K rate has dropped by, like 33%, it's pretty big. And there's only 4 minutes left, so I won't look into like the velocity numbers and all that. I wouldn't be surprised if his velocity is down during the stretch as well.
Yeah, agreed. That would explain a lot of that. But yeah, very surprising. Not totally surprising. Like, is he really a part of their grand plans for the future for the next 10 years? Probably not. So they probably don't really care that much about Nate Eovaldi in this spot. But yeah, you would hope they wouldn't just run him into the ground if he's hurt or something like that and struggling with a dead arm or whatever. But yeah, plenty of additional appeal based on that and going to this Rays stack on the suggestion of even more contact. And on FanDuel, if you're looking at the pricing on the Rays, Peralta, G-Man, Bethancourt, and Vidal Brujan, who is a decent prospect, all in the 2,000 or 2,100 range. Nobody above 3,100 in that lineup. They're cheap. They're easy to get to. They're getting a little bit more ownership, though. Like if I'm playing that game of which one of the value teams do I want, I think the lower owned Giants are just a little bit more interesting.
All right. Let's do some home run picks here, Terry, and then we'll close out the final live before lock of the baseball season that you and I are doing together, because we've got, like I said, tomorrow, final day of the regular season, and then we've got the playoffs upcoming. If you guys haven't done it yet, do us a favor, like the video and subscribe to the YouTube channel. All right, Terry, who are you picking to go yard tonight?
Let's take a look here. The Dodgers, as I was saying in Discord earlier, just like the lowest owned of the Dodgers. So that was looking like it was going to be Mr. Cody Bellinger, one of my bottom of the lineup specialist guys. So I'll grab a chalky Dodger and throw him out there. And then I am getting a weird home run projection, and it's just on such an odd guy in such an odd spot that I'm going to throw it out there. Derek Hall against Justin Verlander from the Philadelphia Phillies is projecting for a nice home run upside mark for me. I have no real explanation for it. Other than, 44% hard hit, 17.8% barrel in 136 plate appearances, translated to 9 home runs and a 285 ISO so far, though. So oddball play, Derek Hall against Justin Verlander for a home run.
All right, let's see. Who do I think has a reasonable chance to home? By the way, my pick is going to be somebody on the Twins, right? Against Giolito.
Like against Giolito.
Yeah, there aren't that many pitchers who are more home run prone than Giolito. I am going to go with Nick Gordon, who never gets priced up on DraftKings, no matter what he does. So now Nick Gordon has had an excellent second half of the year. Hasn't really necessarily been with the power numbers. A lot of doubles, a lot of extra base hits, not as many homers. But I think some of those doubles could become homers when you got Lucas Giolito on the other side of you. So my home run pick here is going to be Nick Gordon, having a good year. Apparently not good enough for DraftKings ever pricing above like 3,200 or anything like that. But Nick Gordon, home run pick of the night. Guys, thank you very much for watching. Shout out to PrizePicks for sponsoring the show. And we're going to be back here tomorrow. Guys, tomorrow afternoon, watch Eric and I do the final MLB live before lock of the year. If you guys are at work or whatever, because I know that's going to be the case with a lot of people, thank you very much for supporting the channel, watching all the baseball shows this year. One more tomorrow. See you then. Good luck tonight.